Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card DFS breakdown. The Plays and Fades channel's got those going again. It's been a while, but I'm back and better than ever. I got two amazing co-hosts ready to break down this entire slate of fights. If you guys know me, you know this is a very, very special card for me because I'll be flying down. I'll be seeing them live. You know what? As soon as I saw Harry Hunsucker, you knew I had to be there. That guy is my hero. So I'm ready to go. Like I said, two amazing guests. So without further ado, let's introduce them. We got 13 fights to break down. It's going to be a lot of fun. First things first, ErikBetsFights. I mean, I was on a show a couple weeks ago, did pretty well, and I think we're doing it again. You know what? We saw eye to eye on a lot of them, so I'm happy to have you back. Thank you for coming on. How are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, thanks for bringing me in, Gordo. I'm really excited to be doing this. Happy to be doing a show with you again. Also, it's my first time doing a show with your other guest. I won't say who it is. You can do the honors there. But yeah, thanks for bringing me in. I'm excited to talk about some of these fights.
You know what? Completing the Canadian sandwich. Let's bring him in right now. We got our boy Manpreet, MMA Lock of the Night, and it is an honor to have both you guys on here. You know what? Erik posted out last time, so I'm going to steal his joke. And you said nicest guy Twitter battle. You know what? You two are the two nicest guys I know on Twitter as well. So let's just make the whole sandwich. It's going to be a great time, Manpreet. Though, how are we feeling? Are we looking forward to this card?
Yeah, man, I'm psyched for it. And again, I'm very appreciative that you brought me on the show. I kind of tweeted it out earlier today as well. Well, not even earlier today, maybe 20 minutes ago, saying, you know, I love being the host and all for my own shows, but I miss also just being the guest and the guy that just sits back and lets somebody else steer the ship. But no, I couldn't have been happier with the guys that I'm doing with. Finally get to legit meet Erik. Erik's been around the orbit for a little while now, and it's great to kind of see him on the Twitter timelines, but to finally break down fights with him face to face is great. And then I had you on my show, Gordo, a couple weeks ago as well, and I believe you killed it that night, if I'm not mistaken. But one thing you are killing it in is the Lock of the Night Challenge, the $500 high stakes game. Absolutely killing it in first place, and not just in first place, but in first place with a little bit of a lead there too. So you got some sharp plays, you got some sharp reads, and I'm always happy to mix it up with some of the sharpest guys in the game.
You know what, man? What an introduction for my own channel. I love that. I didn't pay this guy.
It's the host in me, man. It's the host in me. I can't help.
That's what I'm saying. The nicest guys on Twitter, man. I appreciate you guys for coming on and for shouting me out like that. Ooh, let's get her going. But no, these guys are very sharp. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedule. And we got 13 fights. Let's not waste any time. And you know what? I think we got a decent showing. You know, we're missing some name value on the first few, but you know, when I'm going to watch fights in person, I want something that's going to get me out of my seat. I want to be yelling. And this first fight could definitely bring that. We got a flyweight bout, Daniel Da Silva, 11-3, Victor Altamirano, 10-2. And while both these guys have really struggled with their UFC debuts, going 0-2 and 0-1 respectively, you have to think that this is an electrifying matchup, mostly because, well, not Lacerda, but Mr. Da Silva now, he got an electrifying game style. I mean, he goes forward. He gives everything he's got early on. Very explosive, shot out of a cannon early on, and that's exactly what you want to see. That first round against Jeff Molina, I mean, we all love Jeff Molina now, but he made him look really questionable. I mean, he exploited a lot of the holes, and you know what? Da Silva looked great. But what we see from him is a huge drop-off, and we're going to talk about this multiple times throughout this card, is you're going to be betting on a guy who's got 6-7 minutes of cardio at that, and it's really hard to put your money on him. The one more thing I'm going to mention before I pass it over to you guys is we are fighting at an elevated place. We are in Salt Lake City. How is that going to affect the cardio? And I know that's a bit of a narrative, and maybe it's reaching it because they are professional athletes. But you got to think that it's not going to help out a guy in Da Silva who has gassed out before, who has made fight IQ mistakes. So it's a really, really interesting matchup because I do not think Altamirano is no world beater, but I do think he's the more consistent fighter. So I do have a bet on this one. Before I spoil that, though, I'll pass it over to the guests. Erik, what do you think about this first matchup?
Yeah, like you said, Daniel Da Silva is a guy who's really dangerous, but tends to kind of drop off. And I don't want to set the tone in a weird way here on the first fight, but this fight kind of got me thinking about like the philosophical question of what it actually means to be the better fighter. Because I was like, well, I think Daniel Da Silva he's the more dangerous guy. I think he's got higher level skills, but at the same time, I think more often than not, Victor Altamirano probably wins this fight. So who's the better fighter, right? Like I don't know. It's an interesting question, but yeah, I think, you know, if Daniel Da Silva is going to win this fight, it's probably going to happen early. Like you said, he does come out like a bat out of hell. He's dangerous with both his strikes and his grappling early. But if he can't make it happen in the first round, he's probably not going to make it happen at all. So I think this is the kind of spot where it can potentially be a good live betting spot. I think that you can kind of let Daniel De Silva come out and do Daniel De Silva things. If he gets that first round finish, great. But if he doesn't, you're probably going to get an even better line on Victor Altamirano moving into round 2. So I think if I was going to play it, that's how I was going to play it. Oh, I gotta throw this metaphor out there. I put a metaphor in my notes that it's kind of for 80s kids. But one thing I was thinking about Daniel De Silva, like he has all the excellent tools, but he has a hard time putting the whole game together. So for 80s kids out there, he's purchased all of the robot lions, but he doesn't know how to put them together into Voltron yet. That's kind of Daniel De Silva's game, I think. So yeah, I'm seeing it as if I was going to play the fight, I would play De Silva round 1, De Silva inside the distance, something like that. But otherwise, I'd rather just wait and potentially take Altamirano live.
For sure. Do I have to look up a reference or something? Or no, I think I got what you were saying there. No, I completely agree. I think a live entry is actually a spot that I haven't really considered, but that's probably it. The thing too with De Silva is, despite him being this explosive bat out of hell in round 1, we saw some lapses in judgment his last time out. And we're going to talk about Walmart Figgy in a bit. And I don't think he's necessarily, again, a world beater. But he made him look good in that early slip-up. So what about you, Manpreet? What are your thoughts on this very first fight of the night?
Pretty much the same sentiment as a lot of you guys, but I feel pretty good about Victor here. I do think that he has the chops to survive that early onslaught from Lacerda. He does a good job in terms of kind of nullifying the damage his opponents are able to do to him with his movement, with his funky striking style. And even when he gets taken down, his takedown defense has kind of been the kryptonite to his game, but he does a good job in terms of creating scrambles and getting back to his feet. And I feel like that's going to work out for him here against Lacerda. I personally got in on Victor probably a couple hours ago at -168 because I thought that was a damn good way to go about it. But I feel like I absolutely botched line movement because I'm now seeing -149 on Victor Altamirano. Somebody just dropped a bomb on Bet Online on Lacerda, so I probably should have been a little bit more patient on that line, but I fully expected some more money to come in on the Altamirano side. But the other way that I'm looking to play this as well is taking a shot on the fight doesn't go to decision, the under 2.5, more, or even the whenever they release it. I don't think they've released it as of yet, but maybe just a small hedge on De Silva round 1. Him to win inside the distance is currently +300. I'm assuming his round 1 prop would maybe be +500, +600. If that's the case, you could have much worse spots to hedge out on. But I think Victor will survive early and then eventually get him out of there probably in the second or third round. So I'm trying to decide whether I should take the hedge on the first round or just, take both spots of fight doesn't go to decision and Victor straight up, because I do think that Victor will likely finish this fight in the second or third round. So I can cash 2 tickets there if Victor gets it done. But if it's the fight doesn't go to decision that cashes and Victor loses, at least I get a little bit of that back while still winning a bet. So I'm gonna figure out how to split up my action there, but that's the best way to take it in my opinion. Altamirano money line and fight doesn't go to decision, or if you're freaky, go for that round 1 Lacerda straight up prop.
All right, I don't mind that, and let's be completely honest here with you, Manpreet. I know for people who don't know, he hosts a great contest, the Lock of the Night Challenge and the Dog of the Night Challenge, where you just give one play a week, and I am in the high stakes one, $500 entry. And facing some great people, and I haven't get my play this week. I have no idea what my Lock of the Night play is, but this is something I'm definitely considering. Right now, on Betway, you can get the fight doesn't go decision -188, and that is what I'm looking at. I mean, you have to think it's pretty simple. You have a guy in, I don't want to say Lacerda, sorry about that, De Silva, a guy in De Silva who's going to go out there, shot out of a cannon, and look to finish the fight early on. But if he can't do so, Altamirano is going to take over late and really finish in his own right. De Silva early, Altamirano late. I do think it's a fight that finishes nonetheless. Then we look at the DraftKings side of things. Again, I'm a DraftKings player at heart. I don't know how much you guys dabble in that, but with me being in the States, I'll actually be able to play this weekend for once. So let's go. But it's one where you have to think that De Silva is a good option because he's got a great ceiling. He has the ability to go out there and, win fights. And his win condition is going to score very well. So this is definitely something I'm looking to play. I haven't played it yet because I'm looking for other books. I think my main books are DraftKings, FanDuel, and Bet365, neither of them have released a fight as good a decision, so I want to see maybe there's a lapse there. I'm completely content with playing minus 188. I capped it at around minus 240, minus 250. I do think it finishes a pretty high clip, and that's a good fight to start the night. Give me violence. If you guys can't tell, I'm looking towards violence, maybe because I'm there, but I think it's a great fight to start off the night, and I'm happy we see eye to eye on a lot of that. Yes.
Under 2.5 on DraftKings right now is currently at minus 160.
Ooh,
and I believe you have
hasn't
access to
really-
DraftKings as well.
I do. That is a very, very good line. Actually, we'll probably be playing that as well. I do think it finishes. But
did you open up a
letting me know.
DraftKings account when they opened up here in Canada, or what?
I have been robbing DraftKings blind. That has been one of my major ones. They have some very wide lines. I like their decision only. I like their finish only. On like, especially with Dana White Contender Series. I mean, on most books, Lete sub yesterday. I don't want to talk about Contender Series too much, but her Lete sub was like plus 300, but on DraftKings was like plus 650. So like, they got some lapses of judgment. You can maybe profit, maybe more than I did on Lete, but no, DraftKings has been a great book for me, and I'll definitely have to check in because I don't see them on best fight odds with any props for Altamirano fight. So maybe I'm just missing something. I'll have to go look at it. Anyways, before we move on to the next fight, I think that was a great one to get us started. But let's say what's up to people in the chat. We got a few people watching. Papa Chuck, the first one in here. Let's go, dudes. We got our man, Lou Betcha. Of course, we got to get him on sometime. He's actually been a staple of this show. I think the last time I did the show, he was on it. Olajuwon saying, Altamirano, Philip saying, what's up? And my boy Eagle saying, what's up, fan? Gordo and Manpreet, love your guys' content. Don't forget about Erik. If you haven't checked out his content yet, make sure to do so. All their YouTubes are in the description down below. All right, let's move on. Second fight of the night. Arichi Lang, 23-9, Jay Perrin, 10-5. You know what? I was really hoping to have some MMA engine action and listen to what Jay Perrin had to say about it. Speaking of Lou Betch, you was supposed to be interviewing him. I didn't get around to seeing that. But it's another fun fight. I'm going to start with you, Manpreet. What are your thoughts on the second fight of the night?
This is one where I'm actually kind of eyeing the underdog here on Jay Perrin. I do like his grappling advantage that he'll have in this fight. And maybe in the striking, he's going to be a little bit outgunned, but I do like his ability to get it into the grappling realm. If anything, we learned from his UFC debut on, I believe, came on short notice against Mario Bautista. The guy's tough to put away. You know, he's very durable, has an ironclad chin. And I think that Arichi Lang is going to very much struggle here to impose that will and impose that power on him. And whenever Arichi Lang starts to overextend on some of these punches like he's known to do, I think we'll see Jay Perrin switch levels, land the takedowns, get those double legs, push him up against the cage, impose his physicality and his strength on Arichi Lang. So I'm liking the underdog spot here on Perrin. I think he bounces back off his UFC debut flub. And this is a perfect matchup to do it against, right? I think Cody Durden kind of laid out the blueprint to beat a guy like Arichi Lang, and especially considering that they have similar skill sets, right? Maybe Cody Durden has a little bit more wrestling credentials on paper, but I think that Jay Perrin definitely showcases solid MMA grappling when he's in the right matchup, and I feel like this is the right matchup. So I feel like I got to get on it soon because it seems like that number is starting to come down. I literally just finished up my tape on it today, so maybe between streams or maybe even during the stream, I might just make that dog of the night play here on Jay Perrin. But I feel pretty damn good about him here.
For sure. Hey, all power to you. This is the one spot where. Sorry, one of two spots. I mean, like I said, I'm going to say it 1,000 times today. I'm just so pumped for it. I will be there. I want to bet on every fight. I want to have action on it if I'm going to be there. This is one of two fights that I can't get around to being confident enough to play aside. Maybe your confidence will boost me over the edge there. Maybe if Erik agrees with you, it'll get me there. Erik, what are your thoughts on this?
This is actually a fight where I don't feel like I have a whole lot to offer. Jay Perrin's a guy that I don't feel like I have a super strong read on yet. For me, I think this is going to end up being one of those fights where I'm just going to be downloading information on Jay Perrin more than anything else. I just want to see how he looks here. I want to see how he does against Archie Long. I guess if I had to pick, my read on it was kind of that, like, I think, Jay Perrin, he's obviously super tough. He's obviously super scrappy. He's a guy who I think can probably have a close fight with just about anyone, but I also lean toward thinking he might end up losing those close fights more often than not. Obviously, like Manpreet mentioned, he has the wrestling in his back pocket. If he's able to get that going, that could end up being the story of the fight. I was leaning toward thinking that Archie Long might be able to keep it on the feet a little more, and that he might be able to have the better volume and just land the bigger strikes. I don't know that he'll be able to put Jay Perrin away, but I was leaning toward, possibly a late finish, but like Manpreet said, Perrin is tough. I was leaning toward probably Archie Long by decision, just from having, the better volume and landing the harder, better shots, but not a confident read at all on my part.
Yeah, I have to agree more with you. I think it's a spot where there's more to learn, right? I think if we look at a guy in Richie Lang, he hasn't had the anybody fight him yet that can compare to Jay Perrin. I think Jay Perrin's a guy who, although he may lack certain technical abilities, I think he's got a decent eye for the sport and he's able to implement certain game plans that'll win him fights. I think there's definitely a path to victory against Richie Lang. It's neutralize the power, neutralize his explosiveness, and really just grind on him. And I definitely think Perrin could do that. He shot for takedown against Batista. I think he can shoot for takedowns again here. The problem I have here is, especially when I'm trying to lay chalk on a guy like a Richie Lang, is he's not going to have that same ability to put someone away. We saw him knock someone's lights out last time out. He's got that power to do that, but I don't think he can do it against Perrin. So his win condition for him is output. And whereas he does have output, I mean, the guy averages 6.65 strikes landed per minute. He absorbs it just as much, 7.77 strikes absorbed per minute. I think that the more well-rounded fighter in this aspect is probably going to be Jay Perrin, and for that reason, it is dogger pass, but yet I have not gotten there yet. That being said, the totals itself, that's awesome that I don't find too pretty either. I mean, I think this one goes to the distance, but am I laying minus 180 on it? No. Nothing else really looks out there. I think that Perrin by decision plus 300 has a decent look to it. But if you're going to play Perrin minus one, just play his money line. So I think there are better spots in the card. I like your confidence on it, Manpreet, though. I think I might have to go dig into the tape more and hopefully come along to the same side you are, because everyone loves a good dog, right? So moving on. I mean, we got a comment here in the chat. Papa Chuck's asking the questions right away. He wants to know the unders parlay, and I think we're going to get to that shortly. Off the top of my head, that looks like I'll disagree on one of those three, but we will get to that shortly, because the next fight up, we have Amir Albazi versus Francisco Figueiredo. Amir Albazi 14-1, Francisco Figueiredo 13-4-1. Amir Albazi is someone who has really impressed me so far in the UFC, and Francisco Figueiredo is a guy who really hasn't. We talked about Daniel Silva. We talked about that win that Figgy does have against him, and whereas it was, he executed the game plan perfectly as he won the fight. He got him out of there. I saw it more of a lapse of judgment by De Silva than a credible win for a guy in Figueiredo. I don't think I can ever get past the idea of him losing to Malcolm Gordon as convincingly as he did. So this is a spot where I do think that Amir Albazi is the rightful favorite. Is the line a tad wide? Probably. Minus 500. I mean, it's not like Figueiredo is that bad, but I do think that Albazi has a lot of the edge everywhere. Takedowns, control time, better technical striking, better power, better minute winning. It's really hard for me to find an angle for Francisco Figueiredo. Erik, we'll start with you. Do you tend to disagree? Do you disagree with that, or do you think that Albazi should be the favorite as well?
I pretty much agree entirely with everything you said. Like in a way, I see this fight. There's a few of these on this card. I see this fight as having a somewhat similar dynamic to the De Silva fight that we talked about. Where Dollar Store Figgy is like he can be dangerous. He can find those moments of danger, but he's a guy whose game tends to kind of fall apart, if he can't have success with those moments. And I just think Albazi's the better fighter everywhere. I mean, he's, always kind of buttered his bread with his grappling, but lately his striking has looked really good. He's been moving really well. He's been counting really well. His timing looks good. He picks his spots really well. I just think in this spot, you can really trust Amir Albazi to just put on the better, more consistent performance. And unless he finds lightning in a bottle, unless Figgy is able to just find a crazy moment that I really don't see coming, it is really hard to see how he's going to win this fight. And yeah, the line is pretty wide, but I guess it kind of makes sense to me. You could maybe argue that it's a tiny bit wider than it should be, but yeah, it is pretty tough to see. It's one of those fights where one guy needs to catch lightning in a bottle to get the win, I think. And if he's not able to do that, he's just going to fall further and further and further behind from the fighter who just is more well-rounded and is just able to put on the more consistent and technical performance.
For sure. And I think there are favorites who are landmines and who are dangerous up top, and we'll talk about them later. I do think Albazi is decently safe this week. I don't want to say that because it's tough parlaying chalk like that, but I do think he wins this fight. Before passing over to Manpreet, I know that Papa Chuck talked about the under in this fight. I see it. I think that Albazi has the opportunity to go out there, get a submission, ground and pound him. I think that he is the much, much better fighter, but it's not something I'm running to go play. I think that Figgy has showed decent durability, and it seems that despite his cardio is in there, he's able to stay in the fight. And for that reason, I think that's the most likely outcome. However, I'm not running to play it. What about you, Manpreet?
Yeah, I'm pretty big on Albazi, but like the line obviously is very wide. It's tough to convince somebody to lay minus 450 on anybody. But like I think the kid's the truth, man. I think the Zumagulov fight would have been tougher for him than what he's going to be facing this weekend against Figueiredo. Great wrestling, like you said, great striking. Well, developing striking, but still solid striking. Like, what path to victory are we giving Figueiredo in reality, right? Like, is he going to knock him out? Is he going to submit him? I just don't see either of those coming through here. I wish we got to see Albazi a little bit more active. I'm not sure what's kind of been keeping him on the shelf, but hopefully he's able to put together some solid activity, maybe a quick win here, end off the year with another fight at least. But yeah, I love Amir here. I think he rolls through. I am considering a parlay of some sort, of including him, because I feel he's one of the safer spots on the card. But yeah, nothing really more else to add. The kid's the truth. He's going to have a lot to bring to this flyweight division, and I think he shows a lot of people why this weekend after a dominant victory over Figgy.
Perfect. Glad to see we all agree on that, because I do have Albazi parlayed up. We will talk about that later. You know what? Maybe not the smartest thing, but I couldn't find any other angle to play this fight than really to parlay him, and I do think he's a relatively safe option. So I'm all over Albazi. Let's talk about some DraftKings real quickly. Amir Albazi is a guy who's sitting at 9.2K. He's in between one of the best scoring DraftKings players in Kamaru Usman and Miranda Maverick, someone who I think is relatively safe this week. I think he's going overlooked, but rightfully so. I mean, I don't think his ceiling is as high. I think that Miranda Maverick and Kamaru Usman has the ability to go out there, be not only a safer fighter, but also one who has the consistent takedown and probably even more finish upside than Albazi. With that being said, I don't mind him as a contrarian play. I mean, he's going overlooked, 9.2K. Even talking to the smart guys I do the Pub Sport Radio talk with, they're not that high on him. So I think he definitely will have the least ownership out of everybody at that 9K range. And he definitely has the ability to go up there and put up 110. So I do not mind him. All right, enough DraftKings talk for rubbing it in on you, Manpreet, there. Oh, us Canadians can't play it. Yeah. Oh, well. You know what, guys? I'm wearing a lot of red. I look behind me, and I got rid of the Pittsburgh jersey just to match Manpreet's hat. But now it just looks like I'm just overloaded with red. But you know what that red stands for? The red is the... Yes, and the Swiss flag for my boy Ange Lusa, 8-3, 9-1 versus for the return on AJ Fletcher. I like Ange Lusa. I need you guys to either talk me out of it or talk me into it. Manpreet, we'll start with you.
I don't know if I'll be able to talk you off of it. I am quite high on AJ Fletcher, but not to the point that I'm going to go out there and pay that minus 150 on him at this point. You know, the kid's skilled. The kid has some good grappling chops. You know, his striking is improving. I think we have to cut him some slack for the Matthew Stummelsberger fight. If I'm not mistaken, he took that on short notice. I could be off on that, but yeah, I'm not fully sold that that's what he's peaked at, right? And I'm seeing it this week already, where people are already low on AJ because, you know, he lost to Stummelsberger, who just lost to Alex Morono. You know, we can't do that math. Like, we just cannot do that to discredit what AJ Fletcher brings to the table. Every matchup is a different puzzle that needs to be solved. And I feel as though here we're going to see a puzzle solved for AJ Fletcher in terms of showcasing that he's actually like a legitimate talent. You know, Lusa, big shots on the feet, you know, big power. We kind of know his shtick. You know, I mean, the Killcliff FC guys are so high on this guy, but they're just not really showing it inside the cage, at least not until this point. I don't see it with Ange Lusa. I think you guys are going to have to talk me onto Ange Lusa more than I'm going to be able to talk you off of him. But I'm going to lean AJ Fletcher here. I think he grinds this fight out. Not too many other convicting thoughts on the spot.
Okay. I do have a pretty, let's say, not, I want to say strong, but I'm really passionate about this fight. So let's get Erik talk next, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk you into or out of anything here. This is a little bit of a data mining fight for me too, kind of like I said about Jay Perrin. I mean, we've seen these guys at the high level already, but I think this matchup is a situation where we're going to be able to learn quite a bit about both of them. You know, Manpreet already kind of broke down their styles a little bit, but one thing that I think is interesting to note here is that, if I'm not mistaken, I think Ange Lusa shows 100% takedown defense so far, but that's only on 5 attempts. And those attempts were from Munir Lazez and Jack Della Maddalena, who, you know, nothing against them, but they're not going to bring the kind of takedowns that AJ Fletcher is going to bring. You know, I mean, AJ Fletcher is one of those guys he's really good at timing his takedowns. He's really good at finding those opportunities when his opponent is coming in with strikes, when they're off balance and just blasting through. And he's also one of those guys who he changes levels, he gets in on the hips, and he has no problem just sprinting across the octagon until he has you down. And I love to see that. I hate when fighters change levels and just kind of get there and they're like, oh, didn't work, didn't get him down. He will run until he has you down. And I love that. So, not to oversimplify it, but it's like, does this fight come down to whether AJ Fletcher can get those takedowns and whether he can keep Angelusa down? Maybe. I mean, Losa's going to have he has like a 6 or 7 inch reach advantage here. Obviously, Fletcher, he can be really dynamic on the feet. He looks for, spinning attacks and flying knees and things like that. But he kind of relies more on those big moments than on actually just like putting out consistent output. He's not a guy who's necessarily just trying to touch you up, So if it does play out on the feet, I lean toward Losa having the longer reach, just having more volume, being able to just kind of consistently put strikes out there. But yeah, it's really not a fight where I have a strong read either way. It's a fight that I see as close enough that if I was going to bet it, I would probably look toward the Losa side just for that plus money. But yeah, I don't really have a strong feeling either way on this one.
All right, let me go a bit further into detail here, because when I said talk me into it or out of it, it's because I've already played this. I am betting Angelusa. The question is, he is this close to being my lock of the night play. I love Angelusa. And I could be completely wrong. It could be my fault for betting such a low-level fight. I just think that I'm seeing a lot more from Angelusa. People are really down on him. But he's gotten 2 great strikers in his debuts, right? Jack Della Maddalena and Manu Laziz. All right, let's break down this fight real quick. You have a guy in AJ Fletcher, whereas he's a very explosive guy, a very dynamic guy. I don't think he's going to be the minute winner. I think his reliant path to victory is, as Papa Chuck is saying, is grinding this out on the mat. That requires 3 rounds, because I don't think he's putting out Angelusa. Angelusa is a very, very durable guy. He's going to have the cardio advantage and the durability advantage. So Fletcher's going to have to, for 3 rounds, go out there, take him down, and keep him down there. The difference between Angelusa and Fletcher, I think, is not only their defensive grappling strengths, but as soon as Lusa's on his back, from the limited tape I've seen on the regional scene, he's a strong guy. He's able to pop back up, posture up. I think he has more of a get-up game than AJ Fletcher does. AJ Fletcher, in my opinion, has one of the weakest get-up games we've seen. He stayed on his back, he stalled out, and that's all I've seen from him. Now, that is what happens if I think it gets there, and honestly, I don't even think it does half the time. Angelusa is going to have the striking advantage. He's going to have the output advantage, the minute-winning advantage, and I think he has more finish equity in this spot because of how durable he is versus a guy in AJ Fletcher who can be hit here. Now, I know this is a very small sample size, so I'm going to really put an asterisk on the stats here, but I mean, Angelusa lands literally double the strikes per minute, and although he does absorb more, his durability is not in question here, in my opinion, so it doesn't really matter as much. And then we look at the takedown defense, 100% takedown defense. I know we touched on that, not really going to go over that much more. So we got to think about this as a whole, right? Better striker, in my opinion, is going to be Lusa. The guy with more durability is going to be Lusa. The guy who has probably the bigger physical strength, I think the guy with more man strength is going to be Lusa. Better level of competition to be Lusa. Better get-up game, better defensive grappling. And then it comes down to the whole narrative, all right? They're in higher elevation. How bad is that cardio Fletcher going to look? I know he came in on short notice, but he didn't look great in those later rounds. And if you're thinking his win condition is a grind-out victory, he needs to do that for 3 rounds against a very strong and powerful Angelusa. So I think it's just a buy low spot for him. I think I'm going to let the line keep rolling. I think I'm going to add to it if he gets a plus 150. I only have a single unit on it, plus 140, but I will be adding. And maybe I'm in over my shoes, and maybe I'm, in over my skis, and maybe I'm just getting too confident on it. But I really do like myself some Angelusa this weekend. With that being said, I always have liked Angelusa. I bet on him against Laziz, and I lost. And I bet against him on Maddalena, and I lost. So maybe I'm too confident on him. Maybe my read is just completely wrong, but I do really like him. But there we go. That's probably one of my hottest takes. I am pretty high on him. Is that did shock you guys? Do you have anything else to talk me out of it?
No, dude, like honestly, like these are the spots where you really build your confidence in, especially on an underdog like this, right? Like if you have the confidence, if you trust yourself in terms of the research that you put in, the work that you did and all that stuff, and you come up very excited about it, fucking flaunt it. You know what I mean? Puff your chest about it, beat your chest about it, and let people know. Like the last time I felt really good about an underdog to that extent was Jake Matthews against Andre Fiallo. And I let everybody know. I even went to the extent of making him my official lock of the night play. I unloaded the bank account on him that night, and it paid off for me. It's not always going to be that way, but you need to find confidence in those spots, and I feel like that's what you're finding here with Lusa. I don't hate it. You made a good case. You made a good point, and it could cash for you. I'll keep my fingers crossed as long as I don't end up actually putting money on AJ Fletcher come Saturday night.
For sure. All right, and that's the thing too is I'm not a dog hunter. I'll admit it. I most of my plays, if you look at my lock of the night schedule, it's been chalk. Right, I play my minus 110 to minus 150 range. That's where I've made the most money, tracked on MMA tips, and that's what I try to take advantage of. I haven't felt this good about an underdog since probably Ludovic Klein versus Devontae Smith, where I had like 4 units on Ludovic Klein. I don't know. Maybe I'm in over my skis. I do like a lot of other plays that could contend for that lock of the night play. If I was in your dog of the night challenge, he would be my dog of the night. However, I'm not lucky enough to be. I got enough stress with the lock of the night, but we're debating it. All right, there's some passion for you guys at 9:30 EST on a Wednesday night. Appreciate you guys for amusing me there, but we're gonna go to a fight that's not as competitive in my opinion. Miranda Maverick 10-4, Shanna Young 8-4. I think Miranda Maverick rolls. I think it's gonna be a very fun fight, but I got a nice little bet on this one, and we'll talk about it shortly. Erik, we'll start with you. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this one. You said I think Miranda Maverick rolls, and that's pretty much my breakdown as well. Although I should add, I probably have some negative bias towards Shanna Young, as evidenced by the fact that when she fought Gina Mazzani, not only did I bet on Gina Mazzani, but if you've ever watched my show, Big Money Bets, Gordo, you've been on the show before. You know, we make a 2-leg parlay, a 4-leg parlay, a 6-leg parlay. Gina Mazzani was top ticket anchor of my 3 parlays. Like, she was like my most confident pick on the card. So there you go. That tells you who I am as a capper, having Gina Mazzani as my most confident pick on the card. So that tells you what kind of mistakes I'm capable of making, but it also tells you how I feel about Shanna Young as a fighter. And she proved me wrong that night. I don't think she's going to do it this time. You know, obviously we've seen these 2 fight already. It lasted about 2.5 minutes. It's hard for me to see how Shanna Young wins this fight. I mean, if it plays out on the feet, I mean, she's bigger, she's got a longer reach, but yeah, it's really hard for me to reason my way through a way that Shanna Young wins this fight. So yeah, I do think Miranda Maverick rolls. She's sitting at minus 600 or something like that now. You know, I don't think you can touch that. I think it's a fight where you have to start looking toward props. You know, I think her sub prop is at like plus 160. Her inside the distance is at like plus 120. I'm not sure what the decision is at. I'm not personally going to play anything, but if you're going to play it, I think that's kind of where you have to look.
All right, Manpreet, what about yourself?
Yeah, you guys covered it. I'm pretty big on Maverick. I like her a lot. I think she has some good skill sets. She's improving as well. I think the best thing she's done for her game is moving to Denver. Or I believe that was a couple fights ago now that she's been with. I don't know if she's actually with the Elevation Fight Team themselves, but she's training with a lot of the same characters that you see in Denver, right? Like the Tisha Torreses, the Raquel Penningtons, the fucking JJ Aldrich's. Like, that's who she's training with now. She's getting in some good work there. Great coaching as well. Shout out to my guy Elliot Marshall. You know, not coaching as much anymore, but he definitely makes time for Miranda Maverick because he can see the future that she has. Obviously, this is a rematch of an exhibition match that took place 3 years ago. It was a part of the Phoenix Rising series, I believe it's what they called it. It was like a one-night tournament where she ended up submitting her in the first round, but that was her 3 years ago, right? Like, now she's even better. And, you know, let's cut Shanna Young some slack, right? Obviously, she's gotten better as well in that amount of time, but she hasn't really had the most favorable matchups in the UFC until, or even the Gina Mazzani fight wasn't really that favorable. She really took it into her own hands. She managed to hang with Gina Mazzani until Mazzani started to slow down, and then she was able to take over from there. But man, Erik, I feel for you for having Mazzani all wrapped up in that spot. I remember there was but when Mazzani fought Cachoeira, I believe that was like one of the first 10 events back from COVID. I think it was one of the first 10 events. And I was just like, you know, I don't know why, but Gina Mazzani seems to be like my favorite play on this card over Priscilla Cachoeira. She should go out there and absolutely run through this woman. I believe I didn't make the bet though. I'm pretty certain I didn't make the bet, and I'm glad I didn't, because it's the cardio gassing that ultimately comes into the play, right? Like, if you guys remember the Lena Landsberg fight for Gina Mazzani, she's literally almost about to puke in between the second and third round. She goes, I need the bucket. And she almost pukes into the fucking bucket. Like, not good cardio whatsoever, but that's Gina Mazzani. I apologize, Erik, for bringing back that PTSD. But yeah, in regards to this one, Maverick Rose, you know, I know Eric was saying minus 600, probably not playable at this point in time. This card is full of chalk. Like if you can find the right 3, maybe 4 selections, you might be able to make a decent play out of it. And Maverick, Albazi are 2 that we've already covered that are heavy chalk here that I'll likely be looking to parlay, and then somebody later on in this card. I don't usually do official like 3-leg parlays or anything like that, but I feel like for this card it's kind of necessary where I need to take advantage of some of these guys in some of these matchups because sometimes they don't fight enough, like Amir Albazi, or 2, you know, they don't usually have as clear of a matchup as they have ahead of them as they do this weekend. So go ahead, parlay up Miranda Maverick. I don't think that she loses at all this weekend.
Yeah, fun fact. Sorry, now why we talk about Gina Michelani, but that same fight, the Cachoeira fight, I haven't started tracking my plays. Gordo Gambles did not exist. I was just a degenerate gambler. That was like the first big play I've ever made, really, was the under there. And I would like Google up like UFC bets, you know, like just like getting to the space. That fight night was probably what got me into there because, you know, just back then it was just based off of my knowledge. And then I started doing that was a very good event for me. Anyways, sorry. That was a fight I remember way too often for being such low level, is Mazzani versus Cachoeira. But anyways, let's get to my points here. And I apologize, Eric, because when you were talking, I checked some lines and my jaw dropped, and I didn't expect this line to move so much. But the bet I have on this one was I had Maverick by KO, and I bet her yesterday at plus 900 as a KO line. Unfortunately, it has dropped. I was really looking forward to dropping that here. Down plus 550. Knowing DraftKings will probably be back up to what, plus 600, plus 700 there. I think it's just a really good way to get action on this one because I do think that Maverick's a better fighter. Of course, the submission is juice, but it's not like Maverick doesn't have power or ground and pound. She's gotten ground and pound finishes. Shannon Young's been ground and pounded before. Plus 900 is pretty wide to get a minus 600 favorite at. So I do have that. But if we're looking forward from breakdown, I do think that Maverick has the advantage everywhere, including a huge physicality edge. Physicality, control time, grappling, wrestling, even power on the feet. I do like me some Miranda Maverick. The one official bet I do have, we're not going to talk about my Dana White Contender Series day because that wasn't pretty. The one bet I still have alive was a 3-legger. Miranda Maverick, Hunsucker and Pedro fight doesn't go to decision, and the main event Dana White Contender Series not to go to the distance, which it did not. All that minus 133, 3 units on that. So I do have a bet on Miranda Maverick parlayed up already. Probably leave it at that. And John Valentine, my man, will outscore Usman on DraftKings. I love Miranda Maverick as a DraftKings play, especially in cash, because
Valentine.
Yeah, she has a great floor. She's going to have takedown upside unless she has exactly what I think it was Wheezy said, or maybe Brady. As long as she doesn't have that Godinez game plan of not shooting any takedowns, I think that her floor is up there in the hundreds because she's going to have control time. She's going to have finish upside. I do think she has a very, very good opportunity to score well this weekend. But yeah,
one thing I want to, sorry, I just wanted to add something in regards to a KO prop at plus 900. I think people always overlook the KO finishing opportunities for grapplers, right? They always just assume that it's just going to be a submission, but they overlook the possible ground and pound finish, right? If you have a fighter that is very good at the ground game and can control their opponents there, and you're getting a plus 900, plus 800, plus 1200, or something like that, it's always in play. Because if the submission doesn't suffice, but they get their back and they just start pounding them out, they're possibly getting a TKO finish there. So I love that spot. A very, very sharp spot there, Gordo. And I might even take a little bit of a nibble myself.
Fair play. I love it. Should be a very, very entertaining fight. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing Miranda Maverick. So it should be fun. Before we move on to the next one, let me just say thank you for everybody tuning in. DFS side is always the way to go. Yeah, but I appreciate everybody for tuning in. My 2 great guests for showing up with me today. We're in through 5 fights now, where we got 8 left. We're still going. Before I carry on, let me just be a bit selfish real quick and say I'm at 399 subs. I would love to get 400. If you guys want to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, that would mean the world to me. Because I got DFS breakdowns all you want. I got DFS breakdown editing right now or after this. So I got content for you. All right, let's move on to the next fight of the night. And you know what? Ooh, it is. All right, Tapology is not in order yet after the new fight changes today, but this one is stay right here. Sean Woodson, 9-1. Luis Saldana, 16-7. This is an interesting one because there are a lot of chalky favorites, and Woodson is one of them. Pre-tape, I found myself wanting to bet Saldana. I thought that Saldana may be a decent dog opportunity. I have completely switched. I'm not as confident of Saldana. I think this is more of a pass spot. Maybe play the under. I know that this is one of the ones in the under Pavlicek suggested. I think that Woodson melts him down the stretch. I don't like what I saw from Saldana on tape. It should be fun. Let's start with you, Erik. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I really enjoy watching Sean Woodson as a fighter. Like he's just a guy whose style I really like. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's got an interesting physique. You know, I mean, he's a huge guy for the division, got really long limbs. And I really like how he just kind of flows. He's kind of smooth. He never really loads up on anything. He looks like more like he just woke up from a nap or something than that he's fighting. You know, he just kind of hangs out. And I love how he always he's like showing, here's a little uppercut, here's a hook, whatever. And, you know, even when he gets his guy hurt, even when he's like looking for the finish, he's still kind of just lazy with it. He doesn't really get crazy. He's like, you know, I'm just going to keep peppering you with what I was doing, and eventually it's going to add up and get you out of there. And like, yeah, I just think he's a really fun fighter to watch. And, you know, this is, like you said, he's a big chalky favorite here, but it really is a spot where I have a hard time seeing how Luis Saldana wins this fight. You know, he has a pretty kick-heavy game. He likes to fight from distance. He's going to be fighting a guy with a much bigger reach here, who's a very technical striker. You know, Saldana will shoot takedowns sometimes, but he also gasses out pretty badly. And if he shoots takedowns here, and of course, Woodson has really good takedown defense. One thing that I think is interesting. Okay, so Woodson shows 82% takedown defense in his 5 UFC level fights. So 4 UFC fights, and then the 1 Contender Series fight. He's been taken down 8 times on 45 attempts. And the reason that I think that's really interesting is he's had 45 takedown attempts against him in those 5 UFC level fights, which says a lot about how badly people don't want to be on the feet with this guy, right? People are like, I mean, 45 takedown attempts in 5 fights is quite a bit. So yeah, it's hard for me to see how Saldana is going to win here. I think Woodson's going to be able to outstrike him. I don't think Saldana can take him down. And, you know, if he can take him down once or twice, I don't think he's going to be able to do much with it anyway. I think Saldana is going to start to slow down. You know, I forget which fight it was, but we've even seen Saldana do it was like watching like Mark Coleman versus Maurice Smith back in the day. We've seen Saldana like bend over and put his hands on his knees to catch his breath and stuff. Like that's something we haven't seen in quite a while. So yeah, I lean toward Woodson to at least be able to get a decision here, and possibly even to be able to find, you know, this is a spot where I wouldn't mind looking at like the round 3 KO prop for Sean Woodson if Saldana slows down quite a bit and Woodson's able to just keep putting that volume on him. I think he might be able to get him out of there late.
You absolutely read my mind. That's what I was just looking. They bet down the round 3 prop. The round 3 in general is now bet down to plus 650 for Woodson. The round 3 KO is now plus 900. All the way down from plus 1100.
Yeah, it was plus. I looked at it right before we started the show, and it was plus 1100. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, some money coming in on him too, and you know what? Rightfully so. Like I said, pre-tape, I did think Saldana was live. I remember why I thought that. It was bias. It was bias because, like I said, at UFC Columbus, Saldana was the first fighter to fight. He won the fight. Gave him a little high five. Now we're friends, right? That's what it means. That's what high fives are, right?
Now we're friends.
Now we're friends, all right? So that fight was one that was a questionable performance for Saldana, and Woodson's not going to give him the same opportunity to win. I think Woodson not only is a decent fighter to win to win in general, sneaky DraftKings, 8.8K, sandwich between Gordon and Costa. I think he goes unnoticed because a lot of people are going towards those Tysons, those Usmans, those Mavericks, and people are forgetting about the mid 8,000 range. And Woods can very well rack up some knockdowns, some significant strikes, and even a late finish. But Preet, how do you see this one going down?
I honestly could not have broken it down much better than you guys. I share the same sentiments. I was also thinking that this could be a spot that Saldana might be a nice dog, but after watching the Lingo fight and watching the Souza fight, it's just not there against a guy like Sean Woodson. I've looked for reasons to fade Woodson in the past, right? Like I've looked to see like this guy's always a chalky favorite. There's eventually going to be a spot that he slips up on, and it was obviously the Julian Erosa fight. But like I think he's really starting to flesh it out, and it comes down to the opponents that he's going up against. Are we expecting Luis Saldana to go out there and have a grapple heavy approach? No. But even if he does, obviously the fight ready guys are very smart and they know how to, execute game plans, or at least come up with game plans. It's going to come down to Luis Saldana being able to execute it. I just don't think he'll be able to do it. I think he's going to get touched up. The volume is going to be on Woodson's side, the range, the lankiness, all that stuff on Woodson's side. The only way Saldana wins this fight is if he knocks him out early. I don't even see that happening. So give me Woodson. Might even sprinkle that round 3 prop now that you guys are saying it as well. I think that's a damn good look. Anytime you go up against somebody that has cardio issues, round 2, round 3 props always in play. You know, I took the last thing I'll say about this matchup, and then I'll pass it on to you. I remember taking Bill Algeo round 3 / decision against Herbert Burns, and Herbert Burns couldn't even make it to the goddamn 3rd round. It was like fucking 20 seconds away, but he was just dying on the mat, like, save me, save me. And I'm just like, no, 28 more seconds or whatever the fuck it was. But is what it is. Always fade guys with horrible gas tanks. Daniel Lacerda, Luis Saldana. And there's another one, I believe, later on in this card. But yeah, Woodson should do work here.
I think it's Liam who says it. The ABCs always bet on cardio, and Saldana definitely does not have it this week. Anyways, another fun fight. You know what? We're getting a mix of it all. Talked about lock of the night. We talked about some big money bets. Here we go. All plays, no fades. Let's keep her going. Next fight up, we have, let's go to Tapology rankings, because I do not think this should be in the main event. We have the people's main event. Lucy Pudilova versus Yanan Wu. Wu 13-5, Lucy 13-7. These girls are combined 3-9 in the UFC. Not very fun and not very pretty, but they are on the main card. You know what? Good for them. You know what? Get that money. I have I don't want to bet this fight. I don't. The only thing I'm considering betting right now, and I'm just going to get it out of the way because this is one that I told myself I'd stay off of. This one and the Perrin fight are the only two I have no willingness to bet it. I might bet some Yanan Wu most takedowns -150. That's the line that's out there right now. I think that despite it not being the most likely outcome of a fight, I think it becomes a striking affair. Who's more likely than the takedowns? It's probably Yanan Wu. So that's the only way I can look to play this one right now, because again, I'm degenerately going to watch them. I'll probably bet on it, but I would love to hear if you guys have any very strong takes about this, starting with you, Manpreet. How do you see this one going down?
Happy to see Pudilova back in the UFC, right? She's a fun striker. She makes some competitive matchups, but that's really her ceiling. Like even on the regional scene over there in Octagon, she ended up losing to Talita Bernardo, former UFC fighter, and she exposed her, one weakness, which is usually what fighters are able to expose: the ground game, the grappling, the wrestling. She just never can really shore that up enough to, be a solid enough fighter that you can always rely upon. In this matchup, I'm expecting it to be a striking battle, right? I'm expecting them to go back and forth. I'd be surprised if we see, a handful or more takedowns from either side in this matchup. I do lean on the Pudilova side ever so slightly. It seems like there is Wu money coming in right now, which is pushing Pudilova down to about -120. I'd consider taking a shot on her if she was like, plus 100. Maybe if she was a slight dog, I'd consider it there. But other than that, like even the total is juiced to shit. -330 on the fight goes to decision. Like there's no real money to be made off this fight, in my opinion. I think Pudilova is the side because she just hits a little bit harder. She's a little bit better of a striker. We might get a little bit more volume for the Wu side, but I still think that the bigger, heavier shots are going to be coming from Pudilova. And last thing I will say, I shit on the takedown game and the takedown defense game of Pudilova. The fight after the Bernardo fight, she actually showed off her own takedowns. She goes, "Oh, this is what wins fights? Let me go for takedowns myself now." And that's exactly what ended up happening in that fight. The next fight, she actually just stuck with the striking, and that was enough for her to get her win. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if she actually does pull out some grappling here to try to just control Wu on the ground and just win some minutes and get a dub back in the UFC. So Pudilova's the side, in my opinion, but no real urgency in terms of betting it in this spot.
Fair play. Do not blame you. I'm completely with you there. Just to throw out some useless stats, because you know what? We have stats on these fighters because they have been fighting in the UFC. Wu Yanan lands more, but has a lot weaker defense as well. Both these girls aren't very accurate strikers. Pudilova, 36%, Wu Yanan, 40%. And they both absorb over 4 strikes per minute, but they also land over 4 strikes per minute. Grappling-wise, Wu Yanan, 0.7 takedowns average per 15 minutes, but she reaches them only at a 30% clip. Pudilova, though, 0.16. She has a 12% takedown accuracy. So neither pretty numbers. this is another spot where me saying this isn't helping me like wanting to put any action on this. Most likely a stay away spot unless Erik tells you he's got some big money bets on this.
No, I don't, man. I really don't have any. My notes on this fight are very, very short. I really don't have much interest in this fight. My overarching read on it is something that Manpreet already said. Like, my take on it overall is that I think it plays out mostly in the stand-up. I think Wu Yanan probably lands more strikes, but Pudilova probably lands the harder strikes and wins the decision. That's my feeling on it, and that's all I've got to say about it.
This is on the main card. Yeah, right. John just said it, just as I mentioned it. Don't get the UFC strategy of charging more for pay-per-views and putting this on the pay-per-view. Next one pay-per-view will break the record for most streams. Next month's is the 2 months from now.
Chimaev and Diaz is
that one.
September 10th. But yeah, like I don't understand why they put this fight on the main card. Like, you're trying to sell this pay-per-view. How is Wu Yanan and Lucy Pudilova selling pay-per-views? Like, I get what they're trying to do in terms of putting I believe they moved down Romanov and what's the other fight? What's the other guy? Romanov and Tybura. I believe they moved that down to the prelim headliner just so they're like, oh, this is the last fight people are going to see before they have to buy the pay-per-view. Let's make sure it's a good one. You could do that with, how many people actually know who Alexander Romanov and Marcin Tybura are? So it doesn't come down to the name value. It's just because they're heavyweights and they'll likely produce a finish. You keep those guys on the main card because that's what people really care about, at least in terms of the diehard fans who are willing to shell out $80 a month for it. And you put Victor Altamirano versus Daniel Lacerda into that prelim headliner spot because that is guaranteed action. That is a fight that's going to make people buy the pay-per-view because those guys are all action all the time. That's the way you do it. Why are we wasting our time with Lucy Pudilova on the main fucking card? Not even Lucy, more so Yanan Wu. Like, she's the less entertaining one, right? Lucy's fun to watch. She's obviously great to watch, but like, makes no sense that this does not make the pay-per-view any better.
Yep, she's 1-4 in the UFC weighing on, and she's getting a pay-per-view shot above everybody else, and it's hilarious because you know what? I'm showing people the fights I'm going to. I'm like, yeah, you up top, Usman Edwards, boom, Costa Rockhold, boom, Edwards Merab, Pudilova Yanan, and I was like, ooh, that kind of takes a big hit. It's like, what is going on here? You know what? Bathroom breaks. You know what?
Yeah.
Need them. No,
the bogey break.
Yeah, I'm hoping it turns out okay. I have very low expectations, so hopefully it just is the great scrap. You never know what can happen, right? But definitely a very questionable decision by the UFC. All right, let's move right along though to we're going typology order. So we got the guy with the great last name, Jared Gordon, 18-5, Leonardo Santos, 18-5-1, and this is another narrative spot. I know we got Nathan over here looking at the Gordon side. See, this is an interesting matchup for me because, as I've said several times already, DraftKings player at heart. So when I see a guy, Leonardo Santos, who has probably the better skill set and the better finishing ability early on, he is a tempting dog to take at 7.3K on DraftKings. But we have to realize that he's 42 years old. He's 42 years old, has had a very big decline in terms of not only his cardio, but even his durability. I will never forget cashing Grant Dawson round 3 against Leonardo Santos in the last second and a half. Point being, he's not the same guy he used to be. He's not the same Leonardo Santos that we're betting on at 42, that if we would be betting on differently if he was like, let's say 35. The durability is not there. The cardio is not there, let alone the fact we're fighting in Salt Lake City with higher elevation. It's not looking pretty for Santos. That being said, Erik mentioned it earlier. He's probably going to be winning the earlier exchanges. That make him the better fighter here. It's very similar to the Silva versus Altamirano fight, in my opinion. I think that Santos is the better fighter, more win equity early on, but he gasses out. I don't think Gordon is that great, but after round 1, he's going to have the advantage, in my opinion. Similar to the same way Altamirano does have. That being said, I'm on the under. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus 120. I did hit that. I do think it's, like I said, Santos early. Then you have Gordon late. Sorry about that. Santos is my preferred DraftKings option due to that finish equity. His ceiling is really high because you could finish round 1, but definitely a really interesting matchup. I think that covers it all for me. My notes on this one are scattered. It's a very interesting, really, really weird one. Erik, we'll start with you. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I have really similar feelings to what you said. I actually do have a bet on this here. I split up 1 unit on Leo Santos. He's sitting more on Bet Online anyway. He's sitting at like plus 215 now. I got him at plus 260. I put a little bit on his money line at plus 260, and then I put a little bit on his TKO prop and a little bit on his round 1 TKO prop. So I just sprinkled 1 unit all over the place. And yeah, kind of like what you said. I think, if you make a pros and cons list for each of these fighters, make a pros and cons list for Jared Gordon, make one for Leo Santos. Really, the only things that end up in the cons list for Leo Santos going into this matchup are he's 42 years old and he has questionable cardio. But other than that, like you mentioned, I think he's the more dangerous fighter. I think he's the more skilled fighter. I think while he's fresh and before he was 42, he's the better fighter probably everywhere, arguably here. But yeah, so I do think that there's a decent chance that he finds that finish early, but it's the same dynamic as a couple other fights we talked about. Like you said, if he doesn't find that finish early, then yeah, we likely see Gordon start to take over. So it's another one of those spots that could be a good live betting spot as well, because we could see Santos have that early success and then see him fall off. But yeah, it's tough to. Well, I guess Gordon's more at like minus 250 now or something like that. I think he was up close to minus 300 at one point. And yeah, that does definitely feel wide to me. But so I don't really love, parlaying or betting Gordon at that number. But like I said, I did take some shots on as a man who was recently 42 myself. I'm not anymore. but yeah, I did bet the 42-year-old man here.
Fair play. Experience advantage. Let's just call it that. Nathan's saying Gordon breaks him, and I do think that is definitely a possibility with his recent showing. You could have really argued that he could have finished his last fight, but instead Guida survives and broke him down the stretch. Manpreet, do you agree with Nathan here, or do you think Santos has some value?
Like, I could see the value on Santos, and I think that obviously he's live to get that early finish because Gordon can be cracked, Gordon can be put down, but I think the cardio issues of Leonardo Santos are being a little bit overblown due to him trying to finish Clay Guida as early as he did in his last fight. Like, people overlook how much energy it actually takes to try to finish a guy and then go out there and still try to fight for another 10 minutes. Like, it's very tough to do so. And then against a guy like the Energizer Bunny of the UFC, fucking Clay Guida, it's tough to do. It's a tough task. So, I think his cardio will look a little bit better here. But Jared Gordon is a guy that does put pace and pressure on his opponents, right? The guy does grind his opponents, whether it's with his grappling up against the cage, whether it's with takedowns, or even whether it's with his output and his volume. I love what I get with Jared Gordon, right? Like, I'm a big Jared Gordon guy. I have a 54% ROI betting on him, thanks to Bet MMA tips for those spots. But I only have 3 bets on him. I've only ever had 3 bets on him. The only time I lost was when his last fight against Grant Dawson. I had 1 unit on him at plus 165. Grant Dawson, really showing up and showing out that night. So shout out to Grant Dawson for getting it done. But I was able to get him 1 unit plus 110 against Joe Selecki. I was able to get a unit and a half on him against Danny Chavez when, that line made no sense to me. I mean, it just shows you the what have you done for me lately type of nature that this MMA betting game usually has. And that's why we're able to get some of these good plus money lines on some of these great fighters. And that's what I got that night on Gordon. So I'm more keen on playing Gordon as an underdog than a favorite, let's be honest. But I think this is a spot that he rolls in. I'm not clamoring to get to the betting window to parlay him at all in the spot, but I think he is one of those spots this weekend that will likely hit, even though it's chalk. I don't think that this is one of the landmines at UFC 278.
Fair play. First time in a while, going to have to tend to disagree. I think he is a landmine. I think he is very dangerous. That being said, I'm probably not going to bet Santos. Instead, I'm going to roster him in DraftKings. I am pretty high on Santos this week on DraftKings because of that win equity, because of him being able to finish early. We've seen Gordon finished early multiple times, and I do think that Santos is pretty dangerous. With that being said, do I want to target either side on DraftKings as well? Probably. I do think that Gordon has some decent, let's say, leverage up top, but you know what? Make it a fun fight. Let me cheer for the violence in a guy in Santos to finish early on. I am on the under here, so I'm happy either way. I want Santos to go balls to the wall and either get him out there early or face the consequences of it. That's what I wanted to happen. Should be a fun fight nonetheless. I'm actually really looking forward to that one. That's another example of a fight that could be on the main card. I mean, you have 2 UFC vets here. I don't know. We're done talking about that for now. Anyways, instead, opening up the main card, we have Tyson Pedro 8-3, Harry Hunsucker, the GOAT 7-5. The one reason I'm here at Salt Lake City is because of Harry Hunsucker. You know what though? All jokes aside, he may be like gold. He's never reached the second round. All of his fights ending in the very, very first round. That is exactly what you want to see on DraftKings. That's exactly what you want to see from a viewing perspective. And that's exactly the type of fight that as a fight doesn't go decision at what, minus 1,200 or something like that. This is a very, very tricky fight to bet. Minus 1,000, minus 1,400 on DraftKings, fight doesn't go decision, minus 1,000 market wide. This is a fight that should inside the distance. Harry Hunsucker has never seen the second round, but let it be known, this is a new Harry Hunsucker. This is a 205 Harry Hunsucker. This is a completely different man. With that being said, give me Pedro on DraftKings. Give me the fight doesn't go. And let me just hope it's a good fight. Manpreet, we'll start with you. Is this Hurricane, like the new and improved Hurricane? Or is this a guy that we're going to see laid face first on the canvas Saturday night?
It's not so much Hunsucker. It's more so trusting Tyson Pedro at minus 750. Like that is a big no-no to me, right? Like I don't think that Tyson Pedro is as good as the public perception of him seems to be, right? Like everybody's always clamoring to go out there and bet Tyson Pedro at these big, heavy prices. Like even the Ike Villanueva fight, he's a big chalky favorite there. But like, okay, he might be a little good looking and he might have the Australian market at his fingertips and all these types of things, but like none of that translates inside the cage. And you know, it could here. Like this is one of those spots that he should absolutely go out there and starch Harry Hunsucker. But you're giving me plus 1,500 on a Hunsucker to win in round one. You're giving me what's the KO one here? Hunsucker round 1 KO plus 2,200. Like it's worth a little bit of a flyer, like a 0.1 unit type of thing, is it not? Like that's his win condition. Maybe he has this agility that might surprise Tyson Pedro in terms of closing the distance and landing a big hammer to him. Yeah, I can't fathom parlaying or even playing Tyson Pedro in the spot. Like, yes, it is the obvious play. He is the obvious, favorite here that a lot of people expect to win. I'm just not on that boat. So the way that I took it, like Gordo, you talked about it. This guy's never seen the second round in his life. Under 1.5, I've had that parlayed minus 335. I parlayed it with something else. Like, I don't think that him being down at 205 pounds is going to help his cardio at all. I think he's in much better shape than he's ever been in. Sure. Like it's one thing to go from a heavyweight to light heavyweight, and then another thing to go from like 145 to 135, right? Like that's where you worry about the durability and the fragility possibly being much worse once you go down in weight. I'm not expecting a huge difference in Harry Hunsucker going from heavyweight to light heavyweight, which means that this will more than likely not hit the second round, which is why I like the under 1.5 as a parlay piece. And again, if you look at my bet MMA tips, I will likely have a 0.1 unit shot on Harry Hunsucker to win in round one because I think it's live against a guy as floppy and as flaky as Tyson Pedro.
Let's go, dude. I love that. You know what? Might as well for the culture. You know what? It would be great to see Harry Hunsucker. Imagine the scenes in Salt Lake City.
I want to see you losing your mind. Like I want to see you jump into the cage and throw a Harry Hunsucker over your shoulders and shit. Like I want that. I know he might crush you if you try to fucking do that, but geez, that would be crazy.
Oh my.
All right, I'm driving to Salt Lake City now just in case that happens. I gotta go just in case.
Bro, you got to get like a sign, like they have those signs in the WWE signs and stuff, like Harry Hunsucker trainer, some shit like that. Like just put something funny together, and if he wins, you'll be on TV. You'll definitely be on TV as the only guy with a Harry Hunsucker sign in the arena.
His last name is Hunsucker. I got a few ideas I can make, but you know
just
what?
Got Hunsucked. That sounds nasty.
Okay. Anyways, yeah.
Keep it PG. Keep it PG.
I'm gonna keep that in the plane on the way there too. Before I pass it over to Erik, back to the serious side of things too. The one thing I was looking at playing was, despite Pedro being a huge favorite and him expected to get the knockout here, if there's any resistance at all, he could really just take him down and submit him pretty easily. I think Pedro has a huge advantage on the ground, and the submission line at plus 400 was also something I was looking at. But you have to think the knockout's most likely path to victory. Erik, the floor is yours. How are we feeling about this?
I can't believe you think Pedro has an advantage on the ground. You don't think Hunsucker's just going to Kimura the hell out of him immediately if they go down there? Hunsucker's going to rip his arm. He's going to rip both of his arms off with some kind of double Kimura. I can't wait. Anyway, no, but I totally agree. I want to give a shout out to Couch Warrior. I don't know if he's still in here. He was in the chat a little bit earlier. He already dropped, I think it was 0.1 or 0.2 units on on the round one KO for Harry Hunsucker. He got it at plus 2,500. And I totally agree with what Manpreet said. Like, okay, Tyson Pedro's at minus 800 here. Can we see why he's at minus 800? Sure. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, if you break down skill for skill, yes, Tyson Pedro's a much better fighter than Harry Hunsucker. But the way Harry Hunsucker fights and the dynamic that is created in this fight is exactly the kind of situation where we could see Tyson Pedro shit in the apple pie just because of how Harry Hunsucker is going to come out and fight. He has, 12 pro fights and another like 8 amateur fights or something, and I'm willing to bet that he has fought exactly the same way in every one of them, and he's going to do it again. Is he going to literally duck his head, probably close his eyes and throw his arm like it's a baseball bat and catch Tyson Pedro? And is Gordo going to jump into the ring and pick up Harry Hunsucker and be throwing him up into the air? Probably not. But if Harry Hunsucker is going to win, that's how it's going to happen. And Tyson Pedro is a very good fighter. He is a very skilled fighter, but he's also capable of having lapses. He's capable of kind of making weird mistakes. And like you said, how fun would it be? Like when there's an outcome like that would just be so incredibly exciting. I feel like my brain makes it like seem more likely than it actually is. But yeah, I definitely don't think you should touch Tyson Pedro here. I definitely don't think you should parlay him or anything like that. Should he cruise? Yes, but the dynamic of the fight definitely poses some danger. And I will probably also put 0.1 unit on Harry Hunsucker by KO in round one, because why the heck not? It's just something I like to do.
All power to you. And I apologize for making this even more Canadian, but this feels like cheering for like Kazakhstan versus Canada in like hockey. Like this feels like something that's probably not going to happen, but you got to kind of cheer for the underdog here.
Chaos. We just love chaos. We just sort of
And
absolutely bring chaos.
The thing is, it's an MMA fight. There's so much possibility for it to happen. He could. I'm cheering for him. I will go with you. I will take a 0.1 unit shot on Hunsucker round one. I will do it for the culture. But no, it is it's a wild fight. And you know what? It's I was one saying it here too. Never been out of the first round. That is insane. Especially to get to the UFC based on that. Having a 7-5 record, like that's insane.
This man lost on the Contender Series and still made it to the UFC.
Jared Bandera.
Yeah.
He did go to round two in an amateur fight, and it was probably the kind of fight that took place at an event where you can't even find any footage of it. So
let's not forget, amateur fights are only 3 minutes, right? So like that's another thing.
So technically he did. He probably made it to like 3 minutes and 15 seconds or something. That's a good point.
John's also saying Hunsucker's from near him, so that's some Valentine luck right there. Maybe this is all just more reason to bet Hunsucker, in my opinion. We're also saying, how confident am I in the Lusa more significant strikes landed prop? Honestly, I had no idea. I haven't not looked at that prop. Indeed, I did drop the prop drop thing of Ange Lusa plus 2.5 takedowns in there. So thinking that he is able to land some takedowns in his own right. But Ange Lusa most significant strikes landed is plus 155. I don't mind that. I actually really like that, just because I am on the Lusa side of things. I am on the side of things that says that not only does he keep it upright, but he has the ability to go put Fletcher on his back in the first place as well. So that gives you two opportunities to land ground and pound. He's going to land. He averages more strikes in the first place. I think he has a good ability to go out there and win that plus 155 bet. Keep me talking about Ange Lusa. I love that guy. But yeah, Harry Hunsucker fight night. I'm looking forward to it. The worst part about it is that could happen, and it could be like blows the roof off the place. But the fight after that is the Pudilova versus Yanon fight. Like, think about that. They just
need you guys to simmer down, I guess, from all the excitement of the fight before.
Dude, if
You know?
Harry Hunsucker knocks out Tyson Pedro in round 1, they will cancel the Pudilova Yanon fight. You heard it here first. They will not let that fight happen.
Oh god. Well, anyways, this is a much better idea. Before, I like the way they had it. Marcin Tybura is the next fight, 22-7. Alexander Romanoff, is the next fight, 16-0. Before I pass it to you guys, I'm gonna let you guys break this down first. I just have to mention the picture I saw of Alexander Romanoff. This man is looking completely different. Have you guys seen I don't know who posted it. I saw it just on my Twitter feed of him signing the posters.
It was MMA analyst. I think his name was Garrett. But yeah, he posted. I saw the same thing as well. But like, I think it's like the timing of the picture of him like putting his arm up. But like when he puts it back down, he kind of looks like normal again. But like from that angle, like his hand is a little bit up because he's signing posters. But like, you do see a physical change in him even from his Instagram pictures. Like the guy does not look as flabby. Like he's not fucking Yoel Romero now by any means, but he is still, a little bit better shape than what he saw in that past fight. If you don't mind me taking over now and just breaking down this fight, that
go for it.
awesome.
Go for it.
I think he learned from that Espino fight where he's like, okay, I was able to get away from my raw talent and size alone against these tomato cans on the regional scene because I could just slam these guys to the mat and then just, fucking play whack-a-mole on their face until I eventually get to finish. But now when he starts facing resistance like he did in the Juan Espino fight, he felt himself slowing down. He felt himself like starting to really slow down and felt like he was going to probably lose that fight because there was 1-1 going into that third round. And let's be honest, like that was like the weakest crotch shot we've ever seen from Juan Espino. And we got to believe that Romanov just took the easy way out there. I hate saying that about fighters because I'm sure that crotch shot probably would have put me in the hospital, but still, like we got to be careful about that. Now, 2 wins over bums, Chase Sherman and Jared Vandera. It doesn't really prove much to me. Sorry, Gordo, for insulting one of your guys there. But I think he knows that he really needed to dial everything in. His skill set is there. His athleticism is there. His wrestling's there. All that's there. Now let's just get the physical parts to match up with everything else. Let's get the cardio and the conditioning to match up with everything else. And going into this, taping this fight, I'm like, I gotta give Tybura respect. I gotta take the value shot on him at plus 300. He seems to be the side, but I just can't get over the fact that he'll likely just get taken down and get King Kong'd on pretty much, right? Like I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Tybura will be live for a certain extent, but I think that this is one of those spots where people might be seeking the value on Tybura, which I believe there is value on him. I just can't ultimately pull the trigger on him because I just can't get the image out of my head of him getting taken down in this spot and getting his head bashed into the mat. I know he has like an 80% takedown defense rate and with a plethora of data to go with as well, but he's not fighting takedown artists like Romanov, right? He's not fighting guys like Romanov. And that's where stats could kind of paint this picture that isn't really there in terms of what we're going to be seeing, especially with the fight that we're going to be talking about a little bit later as well. But I like Romanov here. I'm just not willing to pull the trigger on it. Like I'm aware of what kind of test this is. I truly think that this is a great barometer. Like Tybura is a great barometer for heavyweights to see whether they're legit or not. And I feel like this will be the perfect way for us to find out whether Romanov is legit or not. So I'm taking Romanov inside the distance, but in terms of any action, I'll probably just stay away from this fight as a whole and just stay on the outside.
You know what? Fair play. I chalk this one up as one of those landmines, as in there are so much other ways to parlay fights like Maverick and Albazi that I would take a lot before I would go to a Romanoff in a parlay. And I took the dog shot on Tybura. I took a half a unit stab. I didn't expect the line to come down as much, so I got a lot more CLV than I expected. I got him at plus 385. I took the dog shot on him, half a unit there. You know what? It's a weird spot because this is a narrative fight. It is very much a narrative fight. It is, can Romanoff live up to this next level of competition for more than one round? I think everybody, and myself included, are way too low on Romanov's cardio. And it's just because we haven't seen it that much. That one time he did get extended, it looked like he was about to lose that fight to Espino. He took I'm not going to comment on it, but he did take a different way out. And it's really questionable to see. Is like Tybura is a tough enough guy and a guy with decent enough grappling to probably prolong him even more or even take him into the deep waters once again. We don't know what Romanoff is like in those deep waters. And Tybura is definitely the type of guy to take him there. So I did take a half unit stab. With that being said, Romanoff is terrifying, man. He's gonna toss Tybura around if he has his way. And I do think on the feet is competitive, but it's only a matter of time. And it's just a question of, can Tybura survive to round 3? The round 3 Tybura props are kind of a way to look at it as well.
I just want to add one more thing. DraftKings decision only prop on Tybura is plus 150, which I don't really mind. Like, I do think that this is reliant on a King Kong early finish, or not even early finish, but a finish in the first or second round. And there is a chance that he could potentially win by decision. But are we expecting Tybura to win by finish other than a round 3 gas job from Romanoff? I'm kind of counting that out. Tybura hasn't really been like a crazy finisher, right? He's more of an accumulative strikes kind of guy.
Sure.
And I think it's going to take a while or a lot for him to get Romanov out of there. So I don't really hate that plus 150 on the decision only line for him. But now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I could see, Romanov squeaking out those first 2 rounds with his grappling and then losing that third round, but still winning the decision. But somebody brought that up to me earlier, and I think you're right. I think a lot of people are kind of harshing on Romanov's cardio because of that Juan Espino fight, but I think he's going to prove us wrong come this weekend.
All right. Let me just say, I will take the minus 500 a lot more than the minus 3,200 that against Chase Sherman. That being said, Erik, do you agree with that decision only? Are you on the value side here, or do you think this is another chalky favorite?
Yeah, I want to mention, I really appreciated one of the points you made, Manpreet, about like, I knew that Alexander Romanov had slimmed down and lost weight, but I hadn't really thought about like big picture wise, like why did that happen? And, I think you're probably right that like he probably kind of had his come to Jesus moment in that Espino fight and realized, just like you said, like, okay, I'm in here with the big dogs now, and I got to shit or get off the pot kind of, it's time to take this a little more seriously. It's time to, so yeah, I hadn't really thought about that we, he probably has shored up those issues somewhat. I mean, if you can even say it was issues so much, he went pretty hard in that fight. And, in the second round, obviously he, like we talked about, he took that cup tap in round 3, but in the second round, you could see that he was tired. You could see that he was breathing hard, but he was still coming forward with big punch combos. I mean, he was one of those guys who was doing his best to fight hard through the exhaustion anyway. But, what I did with this fight, one thing that I've been doing lately, obviously for the past several months, we've been seeing this over and over again on UFC cards where we see a few of the favorites just blow up to huge lines, right? And so I've been kind of looking ahead and picking certain spots, picking certain favorites that I think are going to blow up like that and dropping decent sized bets on them pre-tape. I just look at it and I'm like, okay, this is one that I think, I haven't even done any research. I drop a pretty big bet on it, with the idea that I'm either going to get line value when that line moves later, or if that line moves enough, I'm going to be able to hedge out for guaranteed profit. And I did that with Romanov. I put a bet on him quite a while back at like minus 330. And Tybura had gotten up as high as plus 405 on Bet Online a couple days ago. I missed that spot. He dropped back down to plus 375, and I did go ahead and take the hedge out there. So I guaranteed myself a tiny bit of profit here because I did, once I did the tape and once I kind of heard some other people break it down, like, yeah, it's a spot where I think Romanov should be able to come out here and do King Kong things. But at the same time, it is a step up in competition here. He's going in there against a guy who's solid everywhere, who's been in there against a lot of high level talent, and who, if he's able to handle what Romanov dishes out early, we know that Tybura is still going to be there. And I think you mentioned, Gordo, the Tybura round 3 prop. That was something I had in my notes too. Tybura wins in round 3 was sitting at like plus 1,800. That's a prop that's interesting to me because I do think that, if Romanov is still showing some of those cardio issues, that Tybura is still going to be around late and could potentially be dangerous in that spot. But yeah, I do like Romanov here. I think, I don't think he's going to necessarily be able to ragdoll Tybura as easily as he has some of the lower level competition that he's faced in the UFC so far. But it's an interesting test for him. I think he passes it, but I did take that little hedge out. So now it doesn't matter to me money-wise if he passes it or not. So that's kind of nice.
There you go. And then John asking about the over 1.5. I know it is juiced. And you know what? With King Kong, it's tough to play the over 1.5, but I do agree with that. I do think Tybura is strong enough. But really, you're reliant on that Romanoff. On Tybura surviving here. It's not like we're worried about Romanoff. It's Tybura we're worried about here. But I do think it hits over 1.5. All right. With that, we are down to the main 3 fights. And these are the 3 fights that the card is built around. And you can see that there's a vast difference between the level of UFC caliber opponents, or maybe just the skill level between these. Sorry, that's a much better way to put it. But we had 31-7 Jose Aldo, the future Hall of Famer, one of the GOATs, not only at 145, but he's making a run at 135, versus Merab Dvalishvili, 14-4, who is my idol. Merab Dvalishvili is my DraftKings gold. Like, that guy is just money. Man, like, I could talk about numbers with DraftKings all day. He seems superhuman. He put up 163 points last time. I've only ever made a few 5-unit bets, I think 6 total, and he was one of them. Of course, I shit myself when I watched him against Marias, because that fight was just back and forth. But I love Merab Dvalishvili. With that being said, I am so close to betting on Jose Aldo. I am almost there. This is another spot where I'm either going to be talked into it or talked out of it. I'm going to start with you, Erik. How do you see this one going down?
I was so glad to hear you say that, and maybe we're going to be able to bolster each other up a little bit, because I am in the same boat. I've been kind of back and forth on this one, and the more my opinion solidifies, the closer I am to betting Jose Aldo as well. I have a few stats that I want to share in my notes here. I dug up some kind of interesting things. I mean, obviously we know Merab is a crazy takedown artist, and Jose Aldo has, some of the most legendary takedown defense in the history of the sport. Aldo shows 88% takedown defense. He's been taken down only 9 times so far in his UFC career. And this one thing that I thought was really interesting, he's had 27 total fights in the UFC and WEC combined. He's been taken down more than once, only 1 time in those 27 fights, and that was against Frankie Edgar. He's been taken down either 1 time or 0 times in 26 fights in the UFC and WEC. I thought that was pretty amazing. But again, this is one of those spots where it's like, yeah, that's true. But also he's never fought a Merab Dvalishvili. I mean, certainly he's fought wrestlers, but I don't think he's ever fought someone who is as takedown minded as Merab Dvalishvili is, somebody who's able to, not only has the skill and the technique to be able to complete takedowns, but has the cardio and the tenacity to just do it over and over and over and over again. Jose Aldo hasn't faced that. And of course, because we see Dvalishvili, I have some stats on him too here, but where did I put them? Okay, so in 9 UFC fights, Merab has attempted 20 takedowns or more in 4 of his 9 UFC fights. 20 takedowns or more attempted. He's attempted 139 takedowns in 129 minutes of cage time in the UFC. So 139 takedowns in 129. So more than 1 takedown attempt per minute of cage time. Hopefully I did the math on that. That almost sounds insane, but anyway, hopefully I did the math correctly on that.
If there's anybody you're going to have those stats for, it's Merab. Let's be honest.
Right. And so, but that's also indicative of the fact that he doesn't keep people down for a long time, right? He doesn't necessarily have great top control, but he does have the cardio and the tenacity to just do it again. If you get up, he'll do it again. I don't think Jose Aldo has faced someone who's going to be able to do the things that Merab can do, but at the same time, I kind of just lean toward thinking like that as time goes on, like I think Merab, I do think Merab will get takedowns here. I do think this will end up being the fight where Jose Aldo is taken down the most times. I mean, unless Aldo is able to get him out of there early, unless he lands a big punch, like I think there's a good chance that we see Jose Aldo taken down more times in this fight than we have ever before. But even if that's the case, I think Aldo's going to get back to his feet. I think the portions of the fight that do play out on the feet, Merab swings hard, he goes for it, but we know who Aldo is as a striker, and what he's capable of. He's so sharp. He's so precise. He's so good with his counters. And we've seen Merab get hurt. We've also seen him be able to recover from those situations pretty quickly. But Merab certainly can be hurt. He certainly can be rocked. And the more and more I think about this fight, the more and more I think that, Merab's probably going to get his takedowns. Jose's probably going to get back up. And while the parts that are playing out on the feet, I think Jose is going to be able to land. And I just keep coming back to seeing Jose Aldo eventually finding that late finish, maybe like a round 3 TKO. And I haven't bet anything on this fight yet, but because I've been back and forth on it, but that's where I keep coming back to is in the end, it turns into a little bit of a sprawl and brawl kind of thing later in the fight with Aldo landing his big shots and outstriking Merab to, either a decision or potentially a late finish.
What a good fight. And I agree with a lot of things you say. I'm going to let Manpreet have the floor before I give my 2 cents about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same lines as you guys as well. I'm likely going to be making a play on Jose Aldo this week. I'm waiting to see how much more this line moves, because yesterday I looked at it, it was plus 105 for Aldo. Today it's plus 120. So there is that constant Marab love coming in. So I think waiting out to get your entry on Aldo is probably the best way to go about it. So I'm going to stay patient on it. But a lot of it is the same thing that you guys are saying, right? The reason Marab is getting all these takedowns is because these guys keep getting back to their feet. He is not great at holding these guys down. He is not great at, Khabibing these guys by keeping them on the mat and doing significant damage from on top, outside of the Marlon Moraes fight, right? He beat his ass as soon as he got into the ground in that second round because Marlon gassed out trying to finish him in that first round. I was looking through the UFC stats of Jose Aldo just to see like who has controlled Jose Aldo the longest. And obviously Erik was finishing his breakdown here before we ended up getting to me. And the guy that I only got up to about my UFC 136, and Kenny Florian had 6 minutes of control time against Jose Aldo all throughout that fight, right? 2.5 minutes in the first round. And then the next round where he had tremendous success with that control was 2 minutes in the fourth round. But Kenny Florian, high level BJJ black belt, right? The guy that was known for his BJJ and somebody that can control guys on the ground. Not to mention, if we remember, Kenny came down in weight to take that fight and wanted to kind of just take it just because nobody else was there to fight Jose Aldo. Mark Hominick, another guy who had 4 minutes of control time against Jose Aldo, but that was all 4 minutes in the fifth round of a fight where Jose Aldo, I remember that like yesterday. That was UFC 129, Rogers Center in Toronto. Hometown of Mark Hominick. I was cage side that entire night, and it was due to Jose Aldo slowing the fuck down. Like he just slowed down so heavily in that fifth round, and that's where Mark Hominick really had his most success. I remember everybody. I think people started or at least people around me were saying, "We need a sixth round. We need a sixth round." No, guys, it's 5 rounds. That's how the sport works. There's only 5 rounds. Jose Aldo trained for 5 rounds. That's all that matters. But if there was a sixth, Mark Hominick probably would have won that fight. But what I'm trying to get at is, sure, Marab might land all these takedowns, but if he's not getting off any damage, what are we scoring? Are we scoring the damage that Aldo will likely be inflicting on Marab, or are we going to be scoring all these, 52 takedowns that Marab will likely end up landing in this fight? But we saw this past weekend on the Contender Series, Jack Cartwright. Remember this guy? I don't know how many takedowns he landed, but he landed a shit ton of them. He was on top of Jose Johnson for a lot of that fight, but Johnson was the one landing the damage. And I'm hoping that's what we end up getting here with Jose Aldo. One technical aspect of this fight that I think that some people are kind of overlooking is the bodywork of Jose Aldo has very much improved over his last several fights. So if he's going to be continuously targeting the body of Marab, that allows him to stay ready for those takedowns that are eventually going to be coming at him to counter effectively, whether it's with a strike to kind of catch Marab as he's going down for the takedown or changing levels, or at least always be ready to sprawl by attacking the body the way that he does. The spot that I'm also kind of looking at is Aldo by KO at plus 450. I think it's live in this spot. I think Marab's striking game still needs a lot of work. A lot of it is reckless because he just blitzes forward to get his hands on his opponents so he can take them down. And a sharpshooter like Jose Aldo could absolutely clip him on the way in. We saw Marlon Moraes last fight. Clearly hurt and stunned Marab. Couldn't get him out of there. Maybe Jose Aldo has a special touch to finally get that guy out of there and shut those lights off. So I like Aldo here, money line. Just gonna wait to see how much more it balloons up. I might take a little bit of a shot on the KO prop as well, but I think the legend of Jose Aldo cruises once again by beating the heavily touted Merab Dvalishvili.
This is a tough one, and I've categorized it as a minute versus moment fight because you're going to have the guy in Merab who pushes the pace, who wins the minutes, but every second they're separated, Aldo's going to be at a huge advantage. I do not rate Merab striking that much. I do not rate his defensive striking either, but I love his takedown, and I love his aggressiveness. I love his heart, and he's hungry. He wants it, and he's going to go after those. He's going to shoot those doubles all day long. But how often does he get them? And what does he eat by going in for those, right? Aldo has to know the game plan. Aldo is such a smart fighter, right? You're going to have to think he's going to be ready with those elbows from the side, ready with those uppercuts, ready with those knees. Just ask Cub Swanson about those knees. It's going to be a electrifying fight for as long as it lasts. And I want to bet Aldo. I think that Aldo is probably going to be where I go, but I'm even more tempted on the fight doesn't go to decision, plus 160. You have to think that Merab has an opportunity to break Aldo. And if Aldo can't get him out of there, no one's going to push a pace and make Aldo work more than Merab. And it's not out of the picture. But that also covers the finish and the KO that you mentioned and the Aldo side. Plus 450 is very intriguing. So it's a weird one. I think it's a fun fight. I'm very, very excited for it. When it comes to DraftKings, I want this fight a lot of the time. Merab is DraftKings gold. Him, Ronnie Lawrence, and Jonathan Pierce are the 3 DraftKings gold players. Takedown, aggression, cardio. They do it over and over and over and over again. No questions asked. And their scores are through the roof. All right. It's almost Max Holloway numbers the way that Merab does it. And I think that the way I'll probably play this is I'll probably bet Aldo, but roster Merab Dvalishvili and DraftKings. And that way I both my bases covered. But it'd be a really fun fight. Merab's win condition is takedown, 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 and probably a decision or a late finish, which scores very, very well. And Aldo's win condition is probably a knockout and lots of damage and lots of strikes, and that scores very well as well. So give me ownership both sides. This fight, I cannot wait for it. It is so much fun. Is there anything you guys want to add on this beautiful fight?
This is the fight that I'm usually looking forward to most on the card. I absolutely agree with you. But a quick DraftKings question for you. Is Merab usually like the highest percentage owned? Like, is he like, do you see like 80% beside his name pretty much every time he fights, or like, is it not as high as that normally?
No, it's always super high. And what I think is interesting is if we look at his past salaries, he's always around that 9K mark, right? He was a 8,900 against Moraes, put up 163 points. 9,000 against Stamen, put up 107. The one dud he had was against Dodson, right? That I think kind of is what scared people off of him. And then I have to talk about the Moraes fight again to add to my breakdown is I love and hate that Moraes fight. I love that it shows me that Merab can be rocked, and it does give him the opportunity to. But I hate that he was rocked because now I think he's going to want to grapple more. I don't think he's going to want to stand and bang the same way he did with Moraes. So love and hate it as a Merab better, but we look down the list. Lopez 148, Kenny 135, Katona 124, Ware 129. These numbers are insane. He put up 99 points in a loss in his UFC debut. It is absolutely insane. It is mind-blowing stuff, but should be an absolutely incredible fight. I am very, very much looking forward to it.
I feel like I cut off Erik. Erik was going to say something about this fight. Please do get in there.
Oh, if I had something I was going to say, I don't remember what it was. I don't think I did. I
apologize. I saw you unmute your mic when I started. I'm like, all right, let me pass it on over to Erik before he forgets. But I guess he forgot.
Oh, how could you? Just kidding. All right, co-main event time. Paulo Costa 13-2, Luke Rockhold 16-5. The return of Luke Rockhold versus looks like a new Paulo Costa. You know what? I think this is a very, very winnable fight. I am on Costa to win. I'm going to let you guys break it down first. The only condition I have to bet in Costa is I hope that the wine is put away. We're going to start with you, man. Preet, how do you see this fight going down?
Man, Luke Rockhold is fired up this week, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have been seeing some of the clips that are coming out about him and the media day stuff that he was saying, fighter pay, all that shit. But like, it all comes down to what he does inside the cage. And I'll always be a fan of him, right? He cashed a ticket. I believe it was an underdog ticket against Chris Weidman for me way back in the day at UFC 189, which I got to see in person as well. So that was kind of great as well. But he's a solidly skilled fighter. Like, the guy has it all. Like, solid striking, great body kicks, his top pressure once he gets his opponents to the ground, hardcore, lethal. Like, the guy's very difficult to deal with when he's on top of you. The knock on him has been his fragility, right? It's been his durability. That's one thing that's very tough to have a fighter come back with. Like, when you're getting starched by Blachowicz, when you get starched by Yoel Romero, and as badly as he has in those fights, now you're putting him up against another heavy power puncher like Paulo Costa. Like, the recipe just seems to be a complete disaster at this point in time. I get the people trying to value hunt here on Rockhold and saying, his skill set should warrant him being a plus 300 underdog. And I do agree, but like, I'm not nutting up here and putting money on a guy that I've seen been flatlined in his last 2 fights and has been riddled with injuries and, all these other X factors that we have to consider from outside of the cage. Like that weighs on me a little bit too much. The way I would have played this had I gotten onto it a little bit earlier this week would have been the Paulo Costa straight up KO. It was roughly around -120 earlier this week. Now it's getting up to about the -170 range. It doesn't have my eye as much now than it did earlier this week, but I think that's the most likely outcome. Maybe even a live entry on Paulo Costa in this fight, right? If he has a slow start, Luke Rockhold, we've seen him cruising early in fights before, but then he eventually gets chinned and he gets put out. It's absolutely possible that could happen here as well. So I do lean on the Costa side, but like Gordo, you're talking about landmines on this card. This might be a landmine a bit. Like if Paulo doesn't put him out, this could be a very shaky fight, and Luke might be able to find some of that fountain of youth and bring back some of that success that he had from earlier in his career. He's 37 years old. He'll be 38 5 days before my birthday in October. But I think his time is done. And I hate to say that because I wish we got to see more of him in his prime and in his peak before his durability really started to go and all his injuries start to catch up to him. Because this guy could have gone down as one of the greatest fighters of all time. He has all the skills in the world to have had that label on him. It just sucks that he doesn't have the durability to bring that about him and showcase that. So the pick is Costa KO. It pains me to even say that. I feel like I'm going to be kicking myself for not having money at all on Luke Rockhold come, Saturday night. But I just can't get into this fight in good faith and feel real good about either side. But I feel like the most obvious outcome will be the outcome that comes to fruition, and that's going to be Costa by KO.
I would tend to agree. Before I pass it over to Erik, let's ask the hard-hitting questions. Does that mean your birthday is the 22nd?
It is the 22nd, the same day as UFC 280.
Mine's the 24th, so I had Khabib versus.
Hey, I know so many. I know so many people with birthdays from like October 12th to October 25th. Like way too many. Even when I was growing up, like we would do the elementary school birthdays and all that shit all in the same week. There would be like 14 of us. Like it's nuts.
I got the same birthday as Drake. You know what?
Yeah, exactly. That's another guy that has a birthday there. Yeah, no, fucking hilarious. I love it.
All right, that was the hard-hitting questions, just like the hard-hitting Paulo Costa is going to touch up the chin of Luke Rockhold. Erik, bets, fights, how do you see this one going down?
Before I get into the breakdown, I got to add, you guys just mentioned one of your birthdays is October 22nd. One of your birthdays is October 24th. On the screen right now, I'm right in the middle. It's not my birthday, but I got married on October 23rd.
Wow.
So there you go. There you go.
That's
Nice.
wild, yo. That is so wild. What a perfect concoction of guests you got here, Gordo.
Yeah, that worked out nice. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what both of you guys have said. Like, but this is a fight where there's so many question marks swirling around it, right? Like it's really hard to be confident in anything. I do also think that Paulo Costa by KO is the most likely outcome for a lot of the reasons that Manpreet already outlined. But of course, we know Paulo Costa can be kind of questionable as far as his mentality and some of the decisions he makes, and he's a kind of a difficult guy to trust. And so, in some ways I can see the argument that, some people are saying, there might be value on Rockhold here, but at the same time, we're talking about 2022 Luke Rockhold, and that's not a guy that we know a whole lot about, I mean, to be frank, like he's just about 38 years old. And it's just hard. It's hard to trust him. It's hard to really know much about what he's going to look like at this point. The last time he fought was like 3 years ago, something like that. So this is the kind of fight where there's enough question marks around both guys that, if Rockhold came out here and took Costa down and submitted him, I'm not going to be shocked. But at the same time, I don't think it's terribly likely. I did bet Costa here. I bet him at -275, I think. And then, -270. And then I thought that line was going to get worse. And then I looked a little bit later and he was -255. So I put a little more on him. So I got him at -270 and -255. And I'm feeling pretty good about that. He's like, -375, something like that now. So yeah, I do think Paulo Costa getting the knockout here is the most likely outcome. But I do think it's an interesting fight. Even if Luke Rockhold does come out and win this fight, I don't think that necessarily means that he's, going to make a run or necessarily has a whole lot left that he's going to do in the sport at this point, but I do think it's an interesting matchup, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
I think it's a super, super fun fight. I'm actually really looking forward to this. But we're here to break down fights, and I think the elephant in the room is Luke Rockhold's chin. And I think that if you have a guy in Luke Rockhold who's coming back to the UFC after such a lengthy layoff, and you're giving him a guy in Paulo Costa who he's going to have to sit in front of for 3 rounds, because I don't see Rockhold knocking him out. Costa's very, very durable. And a guy who is looking like a better version of himself. Paulo Costa looks hungry. Like, he is not out there drinking wine. He's not out there missing weight. He looks in very, very good shape. He's working hard. So for me, it just doesn't feel like the best opportunity for Rockhold to get back into the UFC. Then you add in his fire and him wanting to talk like this and seeming fired up and seeming rejuvenated. That only just leads me to believe he's going to get into even more of a firefight. And in a firefight with Paulo Costa, who do I trust more? Right? Who's chin? Right? I think Paulo Costa's the side. I think knockout's the way to go. I think that he has solid enough takedown defense in a ground game to really withstand anything that Rockhold puts towards him. And then the longer this fight stays on the feet, the more Costa's going to walk him down, find the button, and put him to sleep. DraftKings has Paulo Costa at 8.7K. That is very, very, very cheap in my opinion. That is below Gordon. That is below Woodson. That is just above Victor Altamirano. It is a very good spot in my opinion. His ceiling is through the roof. His upside is there. I even think his floor is there because he's a very durable guy. I love Paulo Costa on DraftKings. We then look at the betting side of things. There are 3 favorites I like the most in this card, and that is Maverick, Albazi, and Paulo Costa. I have parlayed up Maverick in a Dana White Contender Series parlay, and Albazi and Costa are parlayed for me as well. I'm loving those 3. Those are the 3 I'd like most moneyline wise. I think that there are landmines with Pedro, with Gordon, with Woodson, with Romanoff. I think that this is really the way I'm targeting this. I like Paulo Costa. I think he knocks out Luke Rockhold. Give me some more violence in Salt Lake City. Anything else to add on that one?
One more thing, actually. Jeff Goldblum, Bob Odenkirk, Shaggy, and even Deontay Wilder all share the same birthday as me as well, October 22nd. Just saying.
Nice. This is you know what? I like that we're getting sidetracked. I got Drake, so I win. But
I have the same birthday.
Go ahead.
I have the same birthday as the Michael Jordan of BJJ, Travis Luter.
Perfectly teed up. Perfectly teed up. I love it.
All right. But with that, guys, we are an hour and 40 minutes in. We have our main event time. And you know what? As much as I'm not the biggest fan of Kamaru Usman, I'm going to be straight up about it. It is going to be an honor to watch him fight because he's great. And there's no question about it. And he deserves everyone's respect, not only for a performance side of thing, but for what he's accomplished. He's facing guy Leon Edwards for a second time. Leon Edwards is 19-3. Kamaru Usman is 20-1. In their first fight, Kamaru Usman racked up 6 takedowns, won a pretty comfortable decision against him. But both these fighters have grown up. Leon Edwards was, cruising through Nick Diaz. Then he got touched up. Everyone remembers the Stockton slap around 5. That's all they remember. Kamaru Usman is in some very competitive battles against a lot better competition, in my opinion, and that justifies his price tag. With that being said, at what percentage do I see Usman finishing Edwards? And at what percentage do I see him taking him down and controlling him? Because the Kamaru Usman I know is content with striking for 5 rounds. He's content with using that newfound boxing. And it leads me to stay away from this from a betting perspective because I don't think of Usman as a guy who's trying to keep his belt anymore. I think it's Usman as a guy trying to solidify his legacy. And it's a guy who I think is going to take more risks. I don't think he wants to be known as a wrestler anymore. I think he wants those finishes. I think he's seeing to himself, Nate Diaz just lit him up. Can't I do that as well? And I think that unfortunately leads him to strike for a lot longer than he has to. If Usman wants, he could take him down and lay on him for 5 rounds. Wouldn't be the prettiest thing, but it's definitely a possibility. However, I think that his pride is going to get in the way, and I think it's become a striking affair to which you're giving Leon Edwards more of a chance, because I think Edwards is a more technical striker. That being said, Kamaru Usman 9.1K on DraftKings, averages 121 fan points, also video game-like numbers. You have to pick Kamaru Usman, in my opinion, but I'm not out there betting on him in a parlay. Instead, I'm looking toward to have some fun. What's the decision-only line on Leon Edwards? It's all these ifs, ands, and buts about it. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. Erik, we'll start with you. How do you see the main event going down?
Yeah, once again, I have a lot of the same feelings that you have. You'd mentioned about how Usman was, known as more of a wrestler earlier in his career. Obviously, he hasn't been taking that route most of the time lately. And I hadn't thought about the reasoning that you gave, but I think that makes a lot of sense. He's a guy who has a lot of ego, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I do think he knows he's one of the best of all time at this point. He believes he is, and he wants to solidify that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I do have some fun stats to point out here regarding his wrestling. He's landed only 3 takedowns combined in his last 3 UFC fights, and he landed 17 takedowns combined in his first 3 UFC fights. So that comes out to he landed a total of 1 takedown every 2.1 minutes in his first 3. And 1 takedown every 13.7 minutes in his most recent 3. So yeah, we've definitely seen him go further and further away from the wrestling. But I feel the same way that you feel about it. I think that he, if he wants to go to the wrestling here, he can. And that's why I do see this fight as one that's pretty difficult for Leon Edwards to win. And I do understand why the line is where it is, because Leon Edwards is the he's the better boxer. He's the more technical striker of the two, I think. But, he can tend to be kind of low volume. And Usman obviously has, he can crack with that big power, and I do think he'll probably land big shots on Leon Edwards. And even though we don't see him go to his wrestling that often, it's in his back pocket if for some reason he's not liking how things are going on the feet. Like you said, I don't know if he'll make the decision to do that or not. Maybe his pride will get in the way. I don't know. But I do think he's a pretty smart fighter. And I would like to think if things weren't going great, he would go to the wrestling. But I think if Kamaru Usman makes the right decisions here, and I think he probably will, it is pretty tough to see like a real consistent path to victory for Leon Edwards. So for that reason, I do like Kamaru Usman here to, probably win a decision, or could he potentially find a late finish, especially if he decides to start wrestling and wearing Leon Edwards down? Maybe. But yeah, I guess I would lean toward probably a decision.
Fair play. I tend to agree with a lot of things you said. And it's tough because everyone knows a good underdog story, but it unfortunately is set up to the point where I think it is Usman's fight to lose. If we're looking at a Edwards win, it's a lot of if, ands, ors, or buts about it. So it's a fun fight. To answer your question, the decision-only line for Leon Edwards is actually plus 500. For me, it's weird because at what percentage do I see Leon Edwards winning by finish? Not very high. I don't see him knocking out Usman. I see him point fighting him. I think he only has, 3 finishes in the UFC anyways? So instead of taking Edwards' money line at plus 320, plus 310, to get his decision only at plus 500, it's a weird look. Maybe I'm grasping at straws. I do think Usman wins. Manpreet, do you agree?
Yeah, I really think that Usman is probably going to go down as one of the greatest fighters of all time. It's tough for me to say that, especially when he's in the same division as Canada's greatest fighter of all time, right? Like it's very tough to say that, but it's hard to dispute it, man. This guy has all the greatest traits that you require to be a successful mixed martial artist: wrestling, cardio, and pace. And now he has improving striking, right? Like he keeps adding to his skill set. And at 35 years old, he's going to start slowing down eventually. But like, it's great to see him improving even at this stage of his career. The proudest bet I probably ever made to this day, and I feel damn good about, 1.5 units on Kamaru Usman at plus 170, but he won the title against Tyron Woodley. Looking back at it now, everybody's going to be like, are you kidding me? There's no way that Kamaru Usman was plus 170 to Tyron Woodley. But again, that's what we see now, because that's what I saw back then is he is a great fighter. He's going to be one of the toughest fighters to ever beat. And that continues to hold true. I think he's fighting for the record right now in terms of most consecutive wins inside the UFC. I think he's going to get number 16 this weekend, and that will break Anderson Silva's record. So you'll be alone at the top with that record, and that's indicative of what his skill set truly is. This fight, it has Kamaru Usman pretty much written all over it. I get the the narrative that Gordo was saying in terms of, it seems like he's getting away from his grappling now, and it seems to be more content with striking. But like, let's just look at the last couple of matchups, right? The Colby Covington fight, that's always going to be a knockout, drag him out type of war, right? Like that's always going to be a firefight. The Jorge Masvidal fight, he lands 2 takedowns, but just doesn't have enough control time on the ground. Like that's one thing that he was unsuccessful in doing. And I think we have to give some credit to Jorge Masvidal in terms of getting back to his feet over and over again. Gilbert Burns, he doesn't want to mix it up with Gilbert Burns early in the fight on the ground, right? Like we know that's Burns's forte, and they've trained together. And the fact that he didn't take him down leads you to believe that Gilbert probably wrapped him up a couple of times into a pretzel, and that's why he probably didn't want to take that fight to the ground. And then it was the fight before that where he landed 5 takedowns against Jorge Masvidal. So I get where you're coming from just based off of statistics alone, that it doesn't seem like Usman's really going to his grappling as much, but I feel like he knows that's his path to victory here. Edwards will obviously be the better striker here, just as Jorge Masvidal was, right? But Masvidal nullified the grappling by getting back to his feet after those 2 takedowns. Edwards could absolutely do the same thing here, but I think we're going to see Usman proactively grappling more than he has in the past couple of fights, looking to take this fight to the ground, looking to not give Leon Edwards any shot of winning this fight. The only way he wins this fight, and you guys are saying decision only, which is right. Take the decision only prop because that's probably the only way that Leon Edwards wins this fight. But I think it's more so of a Hail Mary KO as the only way that he wins this fight, right? I don't think he's the better minute winner here. Like a lot of Leon Edwards' success, even though he's known as a striker, go back and watch his fights. He likes taking guys down. He likes kind of controlling them on the mat as well. And more often than not, he's able to implement that against, the Rafael dos Anjoses of the world, the Nate Diaz's of the world. You're not out wrestling Kamaru Usman. You're not out wrestling Mr. 100% takedown defense Kamaru Usman. It's not going to happen. Unless they, of course, scored one of those takedowns for Colby Covington, that he's not Mr. 100%. But you guys know what the fuck I mean, right? I like Kamaru here. I have never lost a bet that includes him in any of these fights. I'm fine with parlaying him in this spot. Earlier this week, I was a little bit skeptical because I'm like, he's getting up in there in age. He's 35. If he loses, it's eventually going to be just to himself, and his body's not going to be able to hold up at the level that he's trying to compete at. We know those story about his knees. He has no cartilage between his knees, so he can't fucking do any road work or any kind of crazy cardio like that. So he relies on swimming. But I don't think that this is the fight. It might be the Chimaev fight that'll eventually be like, this might be the one where we have to worry a little bit. But if you still give me a good enough number on Usman, I'll still likely bet on Usman in that spot. But I think that this is another spot where he comes through as heavy chalk, puts the work on Leon Edwards, makes it look similar to that first fight. And I'm not going to count out a possible Usman late finish, right? We saw Edwards slow down in the first fight. We saw Edwards slow down against Nate Diaz. We saw Edwards, usually the last rounds are not the strongest for Edwards. And we know that Usman is a cardio freak. So I think a round 5 poke on Kamaru Usman is not a bad idea either. But I think he likely grinds this fight out over 25 minutes and wins a decision. So give me Kamaru Usman.
Fair play. Don't blame you. I think we see eye to eye on that one. I just took the luxury of going through the DraftKings same game parlay things. You guys ever play around with those?
I have not, but I want to. Like, I don't know why I don't, but like there seems to be some gold mines in there if you can construct a good enough same game parlay. But I'm going to look to do that probably. Well, maybe not this weekend because I'm not going to be able to watch the fights live, which is very sad. But yeah, one of those events where I'm going to be able to watch it live, I'll probably construct one for every single fight as I go through it.
I just got Merab to get most takedowns, him to get 2 takedowns, and 1 in the first round for plus money.
Wow. How much plus money?
Wow, that's
flat 100.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, great. No, that
I like it.
Plus money at all. Like that's.
Anyways, what I'm saying is there are definitely opportunities to make money. I tweet one out every a couple months. Like Evloev most takedowns was one. Like you can get some crazy lines. So I will be playing around, but that does it. An hour and 52 minutes to break down all 13 fights. I think I had a great time. Hopefully you guys did too. It was really, I really enjoyed it. And I think that we had some great betting opportunities on this card. Quickly, before I give you guys the chance to shout out anything you're doing, we're going to do this Pub Sport Radio style. Just going to go through, give our quick picks for every single fight. Just who do you think wins? No explanation needed. Just who do you think wins? And then we'll get you guys out of here. But for myself, I'm taking Kamaru Usman in the main, Paulo Costa, Jose Aldo, Alexander Romanoff, even though I will be betting on Marcin Tybura, Tyson Pedro, Leonardo Santos, Yanan Wu, Sean Woodson, Miranda Maverick, Ange Lusa, Amir Albazi, Jay Perrin, and Daniel Da Silva. Erik, do you have any quick picks available?
Yeah, I'll go through it quick. Some of these I'm not even sure, so I'll probably just figure it out in the moment real quick. But yeah, I'll go with Usman, Paulo Costa, Jose Aldo, Lucy Pudilova, Tyson Pedro, Alexander Romanoff. I'm going to pick Leonardo Santos. Go a little crazy on that one. Sean Woodson, Miranda Maverick. Oh, Losa Fletcher. I don't know. I'm going to say Losa. Amir Albazi, Archie Lang, and Victor Altamirano.
Thank you for picking Losa. Makes me feel better. Man, Preet, what about yourself?
I'll go Usman, Costa, Aldo, Pudilova, Pedro, Romanoff, Gordon, Woodson, Maverick, Fletcher. Sorry about that one. Albazi, Arichi Lang, and Victor Altamirano. Although I do want to say I love how Erik pronounces Arichi Lang's name. It makes him sound like he's like a ginger Chinese fighter, Archie Lang.
Archie Lang, yeah.
That kills me every time I hear it. But yeah, no, that's what I got. Really like Victor Altamirano, as well as the fight doesn't go to decision there.
Thank you. And actually, funny, I was just about to mention that. That DraftKings line of -165 has sealed it for me. That will be my lock of the night play.
Hey, let's go.
Given to you and you guys only. That's the number I needed. I am debating Ange Lusa. I'll probably end up having 2 or like maybe even 3 units on him. However, we're going to stick with the chalk strategy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. All right. With that being said,
I just love Erik's comment on the freaking live chat. Killing me, bro. Killing me.
Oh man. But with that, guys, I appreciate you guys for coming on. It is 11 o'clock EST. I know that doesn't affect you, Mr. ErikBetsFights, you Pacific man. But again, let's give you guys a platform, starting with you, Erik. Let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Gordo, for inviting me to do this, and thanks to Manpreet too. This was literally one of the most fun times I've had doing a show. This was just relaxed and fun, and just like hanging out with some dudes and talking fights. Like this was rad. So thank you so much. But yeah, you can find me at ErikBetsFights on Twitter, at Erik_Bets_Fights on Instagram. On my Twitter, I have a link tree where I also have like an online store and some other crap like that. But if you can find me at ErikBetsFights on YouTube as well. And I also put out some content on the Never Hedge Media YouTube channel. I've got about 3 or 4 different shows that I'm doing each week. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but yeah, find me on those platforms. And this was a lot of fun. And thanks to everyone in the chat for being here. Have a great night, everybody.
For sure. Talking fights and talking birthdays. That's how it's done. Manpreet, what about yourself?
MMA Lock of the Night on YouTube, MMALOTN on all social medias. I will be going live probably in the next hour to hour and a half on my own channel just to do my solo breakdown show, which I have yet to do this week. But yeah, I'll be doing that tonight after I finish up my write-ups and do that. And then I'll be updating the Lock of the Night and Dog Night standings after that. So long night ahead for you, boy, but gotta get done. Appreciate you having us on, Gordo and Erik. It was great talking fights with you. Hopefully we can share the screen once again in the very near future, but appreciate both you guys.
For sure. And for me, my night of content, is done for me being on the air. That makes it 2 videos recorded, 3 live streams. I appreciate everybody who's been there through each one of them. I'm just like you, Manpreet. I don't got another show to do, but I got a video to edit. I'm getting that DFS video out tonight. I've decided on it. But no, I appreciate everybody for tuning out. I reached 400 subs. That makes me feel very, very happy. I appreciate everybody for hanging out. All the kind words. Great show. Oh, DFS Whisper is here. I'm sure I'll catch up. Maybe a good thing you didn't hear about my DraftKings plays, because he's catching up to me in the Iron Man. I got to keep him away from that. And of course, Justin saying great breakdown. Thank you very much, my friend. But that does it. Erik didn't want to plug all his shows. Don't worry, I'll plug all mine because, I'm selfish that way. Got this one right here. Again, on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I have my DFS video coming up soon. And I just did an MMA prop drop the hour before this, talking about Thrive Fantasy, Underdog, and Prize Picks. I do the DFS breakdown on the Pub Sport Radio every week, and then I do a Dana White Contender Series video with Liam and Narco Cop every Monday night. I'll be doing that one from vacation, which will be interesting. And let's hope the Wi-Fi holds up with me. Last but not least, best bets video, current MMA. That is all. In terms of myself, find me on Twitter at GamblesGordo. I'm going to be posting a lot about Salt Lake City, about what it's like. Hopefully I get decent tickets. I haven't even got them yet. Don't tell anybody. But I'm sure to get them. I got my flights booked. It'll be fun. That being said, appreciate everybody for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your night. Just under 2 hours. We're going to end it there. And Preet, Erik, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for making this a very wonderful time, and hopefully some money to be made on the side as well. So again, like button down below. Subscribe to the channel, subscribe to these guys, descriptions down below as well. And let's make some money, guys.